Those are
on the field. I guess the field will be okay.
yeah.
A little nippy, but they have blood that circulates.
It's just so impressive. There's a big turnout of guys. You know, weather like this, you never know. But yeah, they came out, getting it done.
Give you some room.
Call to order the Town Superior work session for January 12th, 2015.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight, first thing we have scheduled for the work session is interviews of residents that are interested in serving on one of our committees or commissions that we have available. We have 5 applicants for tonight scheduled. We are taping these interviews for any trustees that are going to be absent. We'll get copies of them so they can review it prior to making any appointments. Right now, the plan is to for the board to make appointments at the next meeting on the 26th. So hopefully we'll have some appointments made at that time. So,
Okay.
with that, I kept track of who came first. So
Okay.
in particular order, but I thought we'd start with Jason Reese, who is an applicant for the Planning Commission.
Okay, great. And for the trustees, we're going to try to do this in about 6 minutes apiece, just to be respectful of everybody's time and getting done for our next agenda item. So, Mr. Reese.
All right. Mr. Mayor and trustees, thank you for this opportunity. I've been a resident in Superior, will be 13 years in May, and when I first moved in, I joined the HOA and was part of the HOA Architectural Review Committee and did that for 5 years, and then decided that as my kids got older, thought I would get into coaching, and spent the last 9 years coaching them in multiple different sports. And now as they are moving on at a high school, they have no more need for me as a coach. And so they told me to get out and go do something else. So I'm looking forward to getting back into the public service, and would really enjoy to work on the with the Planning Commission.
Sounds great. Questions from the board? Trustee
Just a
Stroud?
couple. We have vacancies on several committees. Why is it that the Planning Commission particularly interests you?
I believe the Planning Commission interests me. Actually, there's multiple different committees and commissions that I was looking at and interested in, but I think from the Planning Commission, I look at the Planning Commission as an overall conceptual part of the town, and having a great influence over many aspects of the growth of the town. And I'm not here to look at what's immediately what we really need to do immediately for the town, but really the long-range plans for our children, and because I'd love for my children to, once they go off to college, that there's a community that they want to come back to. And I think that for the Planning Commission, that's a little bit more invested in the overall concept of the town.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Others? Trustee Dizelle?
Yes, hello. The Planning Commission and getting on the Planning Commission would be a 4-year commitment. And are you ready and willing and able to commit to 4 years of going through plans and preparing for meetings at least once a month, sometimes more often if there's other activities going on?
Sure, that's a great question. And as I said, I've been a resident for 13 years, and I spent 5 years doing the HOA part, and then I've spent 9 years doing coaching. So I am committed to long-term, and my current job, I've been there 15 years, so I don't jump into things lightheartedly, and I definitely look forward to, definitely for 4 years.
Okay.
Easily, yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Trustee Pennington?
Have you been to any planning commission meetings at all?
The Planning Commission directly, no, but I did spend a lot of time town center, coming in here and visiting, or paying attention to what was going on with the town center, but Planning Commission specifically, no.
Are you familiar with the type of work they do?
I am fairly familiar with the type of work. I would say that looking at the different properties and the usage, and then also the different aspects of how those properties are utilized.
The reason where I'm sort of drilling down to is I believe being a planning commissioner, you're either made to do it or you're not made. I mean, you're constitutionally good for it, or you probably don't like the arcane nature of applying the town code, looking at they've got that special name, but the big 24 by 30 sheets when a plan development proposal comes forth, and actually going through them bit by bit and understanding the impact on the town. So just sort of put that in the context of your experience and how you go about problem solving. How does it feel to you?
Sure, and I'll go back to my college days. I got my degree in landscape architecture. It was a 5-year program where you are constantly developing plans and then reviewing them with your professors, who then will rip them up in front of you, and then just, you have to start over from scratch and continue to go through that. So 5 years of going through that process, I think really shows that I was devoted to that whole process. And just from that aspect, I look at how different issues can be resolved within a town. Then in my current position, I'm a director of facilities management. I have over 50 properties that I oversee in North America. And I have to work with communities, work with architects, work with property management, all the different groups that are very integral to the same type of work. So I spend a lot of time doing that now. I also look at one of my facilities is a 4-person sales office, and I have an 800-person call center, and dealing with the different aspects of, it could be simple. In a 4-person sales office, 3 people are hot, 1 is cold, but if you change that temperature, it drastically changes the environment for the other 3. So, and then you get to an 800-person environment, and it's kind of the same issue, but it has to be handled differently. So it all kinds of comes together in the same thought process as what the Planning Commission would be.
Thank you.
Great. Trustee Hanson?
While you're watching the town center process over the last year and a half or so, was there any one thing that struck you as odd, or anything that you would change, like to see done differently, or would have done differently perhaps, or recommended?
I don't know about changing it. One thing that I think that I noticed, and I actually had a great appreciation for, was Trustee Pennington and the amount of questions you asked, the detail that you asked, and it seemed like there was a lot of positivity for the project, and then there was some glossing over of the project, but then you would come back in and kind of reel everybody back into specifics, and there was a lot of detail that went into that, and not that it's a bad thing or a good thing. I think together as a town, we need to look through each of those aspects and understand that everybody has a role in the way that this town moves forward. And I think that I didn't really see anything that I would change. I think I just had a greater appreciation at how the government for our town works.
Sounds good. Any other questions? One of the questions we always ask each applicant is if there's any possibility of conflicts of interest, either through your work or past, or anything that might be a potential conflict with you serving on the Planning
Sure.
Commission.
I don't think there would be any conflict. I mean, the majority of my facilities are nationwide, and it has nothing to do with anything in this area. And other than that, I don't see any conflicts.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Next is Ron Kenny. He's an applicant for the Planning Commission as well.
Good evening. I appreciate the opportunity as well to be able to have an opportunity to speak with you. Mayor, it's good to see you again.
Yes, thank you.
I have also been in Superior for going on 13 years now as of December. And one of the things that I believe I can provide as a real asset to the organization is the fact that Though I've been on other type of committees and everything through my career, whether it be from a civilian standpoint or military standpoint, I've dealt in a lot of different departments, made a lot of decisions, and I really feel that my decision-making ability is excelled by the fact that I'm very fact-based kind of individual. So I believe that instead of conversations, I think the facts speak for themselves, and I think based on that, that's how we go about making the better decisions for the city. The Planning Commission, as somebody asked the question, why this particular one? I think it has a lot to do with the fact that I can see the results of what I would be able to contribute long-term. And I think we have to look at short-term as well as long-term and understand the implications of that, whether it be in the next 3 years or the next 20 years. But I think that Town of Superior is really underrated a lot in terms of what we offer and provide to a family. And I think that my participation in that could help to get us to a level where we once again can be very independent but very proud of where we live.
Great, thank you. Questions from the board?
Sure.
Trustee Williams?
I'm just wondering, did you watch the town center process, and how did you think that went? And again, what changes would you have made?
Well, it certainly is very controversial. And though I didn't agree with a lot that went on and the town center itself, I think there's aspects of it that could be very beneficial to the Town of Superior. I think it could have required some additional due diligence, but at the same time, it's pretty much the decision's been made. So I don't know what other alternatives we have at this point in time. So unless I understood that better, I really don't think I'm qualified to make a recommendation on anything at this point.
Thank you.
Trustee Pennington?
Sandy?
Have you attended or watched Planning Commission meetings? Are you familiar with what they deal with? And how do you feel you would approach your role as Planning Commissioner?
Well, I believe there's 12 members on the committee. Is that correct?
Nine.
9, okay. I just made up 3 more, okay. You know, if I look at the property that's still available and what we're going to be doing with that, for instance, over by the Horizons, for instance, there's a parcel of land there that I've been told at some point that there could be a hotel there. I'm not sure. I mean, it seems like a very good idea because of the location and not having that many hotels on this side of 36. But at the same time, I think that it's an area that possibly could be used more beneficial for other things. Also, there's a parcel that's down off Colton Road in McCaslin that's been, I think there's been a lot of discussion around that one as to what could be done with that as well. And once again, I think it could be developed to the point of being very beneficial to the city, but we'd have to look at different alternatives and different contractors as to how we could do that the best for the city. I don't think it's a short-term type of decision, but something we need, once again, to have the facts on as to what the opportunities could be for there, some recommendations on how they'd financially be able to impact the city long-term. So it has a lot to do with the parcels that are still available and what we can do with them and for the benefit of all, not just a select few.
Others?
I think one of the things that Sandy mentioned too is, have you been to Planning Commission meetings? And I think you have attended Planning Commission meetings. I think I've seen you there before in the past.
I have.
Yes.
Not many, but I have been
Yeah.
there, yes. So I have somewhat of an idea of what the job entails.
Not many of us, other than us, who ended up on the Planning Commission, wanted to attend Planning Commission. Because they're good. I like them, but I like them. But anyway, so again, I asked the same question, which is, it's a commitment. You know, when you go into Planning Commission, I would expect that someone would make the commitment, be there for the 4 years, for the duration, attend the meetings, actually encourage meetings, you know, and make sure to go through the things that are important, just like that you were bringing out. So from what you're saying, the fact that you're up here, I assume that you would answer affirmatively that you are committed to this in a 4-year commitment, and that you would do the work necessary to actually participate in the decision-making process on the committee. Is that correct?
Yes, I think that you kind of caught me at a great time here, because the reason I'm saying that is I hope to be able to retire, so to speak, from my civilian occupation at this point in time. I'm retired from the military, so I don't have to worry about that one anymore. So I would have plenty of time to be able to see and read and research and be kept up to speed on what's going on. And so I have the time now to be able to do that. With not working in a civilian capacity any longer, that would still give me even more time to be more involved with it. Not only with the planning committee, but also the other committees that interface with that as well.
Thank you.
That's good. Any other questions?
No, he just answered the question I was going to ask, which was why particularly now. That you just answered that.
You've lived in town for quite a while. I know that you've attended a lot of the meetings during the town center process. How do you envision the town in 5-10 years from now? You've seen a lot of changes since you've been here, and most recently. And then how do you envision it moving forward?
Well, I hope that based upon the trustees and the mayor we have here, that we're going to be moving very forward very quickly. I also would like to see that the merchants that we have here get some additional benefits in terms, and I'm not sure if tax concessions is the right way to go with that, but I think that in order for us to prosper the way we need to, and in order for us to be that type of town that stands alone and that is by itself recognized as one of the top in the country, that we need to have more businesses here and be able to support them better. So I see the opportunity as a good one for the town of Superior, not only from the last 5 years, but more so for the next 5 years coming.
Sounds good. We're kind of pushing up against our time, so I'll close with a question we always ask about conflicts of interest. Any perceived conflicts of interest with you potentially serving on the Planning Commission?
Not really. I mean, I've been on other type of committees and everything throughout my career in both the Army as well as civilian. So conflicts, I really don't have any that I can think of.
Okay, great. Thanks so much for your time.
Sure. Thank you.
Next, we have Tom Lyons, and he's also an applicant for the Planning Commission.
Good evening. Mr. Mayor, Board of Trustees, thanks for entertaining me today, or I don't know if that's quite the right word. Entertaining my application, I guess, for Planning Commission. I grew up in Boulder and went to Boulder High and graduated from the University of Colorado in 1988 and moved to San Francisco in seek of fame and fortune and found neither, and found myself back here in 2000, in which time this community had gone from a little town. I joke with some of you, when I was younger, George Kuffner's son and I were classmates together, and we used to always have parties in Superior at the Kuffner place. So suffice it to say, when I moved back and everyone said, oh, you should check out this place, Superior, and it's changed quite a bit. Anyway, I moved back here in 2000 and got married and have a son at El Dorado in the 4th grade. And I started talking with several of you about this opportunity and sort of how to get more involved in the community. And I've been involved with the local Cub Scout pack as the Cub Master. We've done some things around the town with the National Day of Service. Been involved at the school and with some of the YMCA youth teams. And I just think that I would bring a good perspective to the Planning Commission. And before you ask, I haven't been to a Planning Commission meeting, but I have to tell you, and Clint knows this firsthand, I am an avid fan of Channel 8, and I do tend to watch all of you, normally at about 3 in the morning when I can't sleep. So I just got a text from my son who said, Dad, I saw the back of your head on TV. So as far as I'm concerned, it's been a win for me today.
Can I just ask, is that a remedy for not being able to sleep?
It is an absolute remedy. I would highly recommend, if you can't sleep, turn on Channel 8.
Questions from the board?
Same
Trustee
thing for
Bain.
me. Why the Planning Commission?
Well, Sandy, I think it's important that we take a good look at where our town is headed. My job outside of hopefully being on this commission is I work for Cisco. We're a nationwide distributor of groceries. So I get an opportunity to interface with small businesses and large businesses all the time. And in the restaurant industry, it's an industry that everyone wants to get into, and very few, if any, well, not if any, but very few are successful. And I see, looking at the town of Superior, for example, we have far too many restaurants for the number of people that can eat there. And unfortunately, we've seen some failures of those. So I think it's important as the Planning Commission that as we look in ways to grow revenue, we also select the type of businesses and support those businesses that we think can be successful. I've also noticed and watched a little bit from afar, but I got very interested, and I know we spoke, Sandy, about the field project north of El Dorado. I went to a couple meetings on that, and I know that's sort of in limbo right now, but I've talked to several of you about that, and that kind of got my interest. And then in the latest mayoral election, I did actually kind of get involved and look around and voted for most of you. So if you could return the favor, I'd appreciate it.
Is that a conflict of interest?
We're pushing it in there, Tom.
That's pretty funny.
Other questions?
Sure.
Trustee Williams, or Mayor Pro Tem Williams.
So I was wondering if you watched the town center process and what you thought of it and what you would have done differently.
Well, I think anytime you're trying to get a group of people to agree on such a large-scale project, it's going to be difficult. And at a certain point, that's why we have elected officials to make the final decisions. So I don't know that I would change a whole lot. I think, and I don't know, I've talked to several of you about this. I mean, one of the disappointing things about it is that once it got approved and got started, it stopped. And I think because I paid attention to it, I've sort of understood why it stops, but I wonder if all my neighbors understood what's going on and what's going on with the financing. And I don't know what role that particular commission played in vetting out the financing to make sure it was in place, but obviously whatever the main tenants had in place fell through at the last minute, and so now we have this great development which is on hold for a period of time. And so, you know, that was, I guess, the only insight that I have to it. I know Jim Sawtelle pretty well, and we talked about it on and off. I think it's a great development. My understanding is there's a lot of interest in non-restaurant businesses going in there, which I think is going to be great because I think it gives people another reason to come to Superior.
Thank you.
Trustee Dozell?
And I have the same question about your commitment of time for 4 years. Do you travel, or would you be available for the meetings and to do the work ahead of time prior to the meeting?
Sure, thanks. Yeah, I had thought about this before I applied because I didn't want to get into a job and then have to tell you, hey, guys, guess what, I can't do it. I do travel a bit for my job. It's sporadic, but I do manage my own travel schedule. So I don't think, you know, I understand, you know, there's a packet that comes out, is my understanding, and you have to read the materials and become familiar with it ahead of time, which is kind of what I do. I read bids for a living. And so reading long, somewhat boring materials is just kind of what I do. And actually, someone asked a question about construction and reading documents. Previous to this job, I did work in, we were a metal fabricator, so I had to read a lot of plan documents and specification. And I've found that oftentimes, in the rush to get projects finished, attention to detail is skipped over. So I would hope that that would be something that we could bring to the Planning Commission to say, you know, it's important that we talk about these things because the things that you never think are going to become issues typically become issues, and the things that you think are going to become issues usually don't.
Thank you.
Sure.
Other questions? Sure. Trustee Hansen?
So it sounds like some of your first experiences in this town was when this town was exclusively made up by Kuffners. But, so you've also seen some changes, quite a few changes in this town, and we have to imagine there's going to be several more changes. So I'll ask the same question. How do you envision this town 5 to 10 years from now?
Well, Chris, I like the town. I chose to live here, so, you know, I'd like it to continue to be successful. One of the things that concerns me is our tax base. Clint was very helpful in explaining to me, you know, how property taxes get divvied up and the fact that we really don't make a lot of money off that we really do depend on sales tax revenue to fund the city and do all the things that we want to do. So I think it's important that we attract the right kind of businesses. as the previous gentleman said, right, and support those businesses and help those businesses be successful and drive business to Superior, that, there's a lot of people here, but people drive by here every day that could be shopping in our stores and enjoying our city to that degree, spending money.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Is
Thanks.
there any possibility of conflicts of interest that you might see, other than the voting issue? that you brought up?
Other than the voting, no, I think we'll be fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Vicki Kuffner, who's an applicant for the Historical Commission.
I don't look like a typical Kuffner, do I? So I'm Vicki Kuffner. I'm married to Phil Kuffner, and I've been in Superior 33 and a half years, actually. When I got married, I moved out here with my husband, Phil. I am, as you know, the history of the Kuffners, been here generations, but my reason for being interested in the Historical Society is because, or commission, is because my great-grandmother moved here when she was 4 from Conifer, and my great-great-grandparents are actually in the cemetery up here on the hill, and I talk with my great-aunt a lot. She has a lot of interest in the history of Superior and our heritage and our families, and so it started making me think about, I live here, I've lived here for 33 years, I will probably live here another 100, and my kids, are interested in living in Superior, and so I want to look at preserving the history of Superior. So that's why I'm interested in getting on the Historical Commission.
Great. Questions?
That one is the Friday at 10 a.m. meeting.
Yes.
So that really is the critical thing. Does that work with your schedule?
Yes, I actually have my own business. I do retirement planning and financial planning in Louisville, and so I set my own schedule. So
Okay.
I looked at that as well to make sure that wasn't going to be an issue with my time.
Okay.
Have you been to some of the meetings? And
I went to the last one that we had this month, and I actually met Mr. Sorelli and some of the people on the commission. So kind of got an idea of what they do and what they're working for, and some of their ideas for this year.
And I assume you know a lot of the members that are on it at this point?
Actually, I don't, I guess.
Wow.
Really know them, yeah. So another reason to get involved.
Trustee Joseph?
And I appreciate your coming forward as a candidate, because what I find, I participated in the Historical Commission a long time ago, but not recently. But what I really enjoy is someone that is actively engaged in the community like yourself and historically connected to the
Yeah.
community. But also, we like to bring in the people that are more than just the retired people that are, I mean, they're given their heart and soul. They're giving their heart and soul.
Looking at you?
I never looked at you. You don't have to, were you coughing up a hairball or something? So that's what's really good about it too. And I think what you may find is that you'll get a lot of people asking you to do a lot of things. So again, the commitment to the
Right.
committee, and once you get there, you can get involved in so much, I know. And then we've been talking about bringing the youth and connecting them with the Youth Services Committee, more with the Historical Committee. So there'll be some great opportunities coming forward. So again, the commitment, I assume you have the commitment to spend the time and
Yes.
and the energy.
Yeah,
Okay.
my kids are grown adults, so
Mhm.
I don't have small children at home anymore. So I do have the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Great. Thank you.
Trustee Hanson?
I just was going to reemphasize that commitment. That is a very active group, and they have the first Saturdays of every month where they're at the museum. We do the second grade field trip that's usually at least a half a day, 3 days out of the month of September, is it?
September, October.
Where we have all the second graders at the 3 elementary schools come in. They do the tombstone tour, they do the mine shaft tour, all that stuff, very fun stuff. But
An April program or spring program.
in addition to being part of the 4th of July parade and the pancake breakfast
Right.
and the beer fest and all, not beer fest.
Chili fest.
The chili fest. I've suddenly changed it to the beer fest, so.
It used to be a chili fest.
a fun group, really good people, and
Yes.
but they are very active. So I can't overemphasize that enough.
Right. And when I went to the meeting, I kind of talked to them about the fact that most of the volunteer time is weekends and evenings, not so much work hours.
Yeah.
Other than the 10 o'clock meeting. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, great. Anyone else have any questions?
Any conflict?
Any
Other than
conflicts?
being a Kuffner, I don't know.
You'll let us
Yeah,
decide.
there may be some history you want to hide.
And you're talking to these great greats. Are some of those the ones that are in the cemetery? You've been talking to them regularly? Maybe that's a conflict. You said you were talking to your great aunt or something.
Yeah,
so-
yeah, my great aunt's in Boulder.
Oh, okay.
She-
Not in the cemetery.
Yeah, she's not in the cemetery. She's still here. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
And last, we have Matt Morris, who's an applicant for the Open Space Advisory Committee.
Good evening. I'm a nerdy engineer, so Channel 8 actually pumps me up for workouts. Put me to sleep. To follow suit, I'm a 9-year resident of Sagamore behind us here. And as I understand it, we're a little bit underrepresented from that neighborhood. So that's one reason I'd like to join the Open Space Committee. The other thing is I've grown to really appreciate the open space. I understand that's Boulder County open space behind our house, but we've appreciated the lack of noise pollution, light pollution, the aesthetics, being able to see the mountains and the vegetation and the wildlife. And so I also teach a civil engineering course, and I've been preaching to my students we need more engineers in our government, at all levels. And I realized I wasn't practicing what I was preaching, so I want to get involved, and the Open Space Committee seems to be a good fit for me to start getting involved.
Sounds great. Trustee Sorelli?
Question that's gnawing at me. 7 years in the Air Force, but 2 years teaching at the military academy. How did that happen?
I was an exchange officer at West Point, and so I got a lot of ribbings being an Air Force officer at West Point. Yeah. So that was a good time, and there you get to witness a lot of preservation, historic preservation, green space preservation, and grew to appreciate it there too.
Trustee Hanson?
So there's really a finite amount of open space to be purchased with the funds that we have. There's a couple of real appealing parcels, but once those are purchased, if they are purchased, how do you envision the open space, or what would you think their charge would be after open space acquisitions are done?
Well, I think once acquisition's done, preservation is clearly the next thing. So looking at the 2005 survey, probably about half the open space is now planned for development, and so I believe the charge would be to preserve what's left. And the other aspect of the committee seems to be trails and the proper planning and development of bike and multi-use trails. For example, there's a trail that is planned 10 feet behind my back door, and I'd love to get involved in the planning or getting rid of that particular trail.
It's disclosure. I'm actually the board liaison to OSAC, and I think the one thing that's emerged is there are a lot of time conflicts with its members and ability to consistently make meetings. So that becomes very important because you have to have quorums to make decisions. So talk to us about your ability to make that 7 p.m. the second Wednesday of the month meeting.
Sure. So I discussed that with my family, and I'm committed to make those meetings. And I have a young family, and so I am committed to them. But at the same time, we've discussed this, and
You've blocked it off?
It's blocked off.
Good.
And I teach during the day, so it's not an issue work-wise.
Other question?
You made reference to what teaching, and I think it is relevant to this committee. Would you explain what it is you do teach?
I teach civil and architectural engineering, at the University of Colorado, specifically construction management courses, and a portion of which is master planning and the appropriate use of land and being responsible and sustainability and environmental efforts.
What caused that?
I'm getting out of here.
Any other questions? Okay. Any potential for conflicts of interest that you might perceive?
Not with the open space. I don't think so.
Okay.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thanks for your time. All right. With
Yeah,
that-
so we'll, depending if we have any more applicants come forward, but plan is to have board make appointments at the next meeting on the 26th. And my staff will inform all the applicants here this week on what the status is, and then after the meeting on the 26th as well. Thank you for coming.
Hey, Matt, so what's the process? There's a lot of people that have applied for the planning commission positions. So what's the process going to be to determine that?
Well, it's in the code. It's in the ordinance that was adopted by the board as far as process for selecting applicants and making appointments. And it's basically a ballot or a sheet is passed out to all the board members. It lists the committee or commission that you're voting on, number of vacancies, and lists the applicants, and then you're to vote for the number of vacancies that are available.
Okay.
And then those are passed down to the town clerk. She tallies the votes. If there's a clear, let's say there's 2 vacancies, if there's clear 2 candidates that the board likes, then those are the candidates that are appointed, and then a resolution is passed appointing them to that committee or commission.
Okay.
What if there's not a majority? I mean, what if it's 2, 2, 2, and 2?
If there's a tie, then the top, let's say 3 candidates are, there's a second vote with those top 3 candidates until there's a clear 2 that are selected.
Okay.
And so what's the timeline process? What's our time frame here that we're looking at?
Next meeting.
It is the next meeting.
That's correct, the 26th.
And overall, how many candidates do we have already at this point?
I think we have 5 for the planning commission, and then I think we have 2 for open space and 1 for historical commission. My recollection, but
Okay.
we'll have that information for you at the meeting of the 26th.
Is it possible that we could get that ahead of the packet, or, because we have that information already of who's
I can
applied for
send the
which
board an
positions?
email with,
That would be
Yeah.
really helpful, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
and those, like trustee Gregoris wasn't here for these interviews, copy of the tape will be provided to him so he can review the interviews that were held tonight. And then previous interviews, if there's any trustees that were missing, we'll make copies of those tapes, give those to them as well.
Can
I
make
actually
a-
think we have 6 for the planning commission.
Yeah, I think so.
Yes, we do.
Can I make a suggestion or possible suggestion? It would really be helpful for me if we gathered a tape of all of the ones that we've done in the last, I don't know how long it's been since we've had these positions open and how many interviews we've had, but it would be great if we had just a separate little packet sent to our homes, or we'll come pick it up, a tape of everybody and everybody's application, so I can review it, all together.
Yeah, we can do that.
The first set was on November 24th, and then I think tonight was the only other.
I think there's been three separate interview times that we've done.
That's a really good
No, I think
recommendation.
it's
It's been a
all
while
3 were
since
done
we
on the
met the
24th.
first
Okay.
It was
candidate.
November 24th,
Yep.
and tonight is.
Yeah, all 3 were done, or all 3 of those planning commission.
I agree, I'd like to have all 6 planning commissioners together, so I can re-listen and re-look.
Yep.
Depends on what the
If we
attendance was.
actually taped it that first time, I don't
We
know.
did.
We
Yeah,
did?
we did.
During the work session?
Yep, they're all been taped.
Okay, because we were all here though, so I don't know.
Okay, should we move on to the,
Thank you, all of you, for applying.
yes, thank you. come tonight.
And you're welcome to stay listening to this next thing, which is right
This is
down your
really
alley.
keen, what we're going to talk about next.
Tom might fall asleep. That's what he does to fall asleep.
So our next item for the work session is a presentation on water and wastewater services integration study that we've been working with the city of Louisville on. Alex and his staff and Jim Widener and our consultant have been working with Louisville staff and the consultant on this possibility. And it was also discussed at the last joint issues committee that we had with the city of Louisville as well, which Trustee Sorelli and Gregoris are members of. The integration study was conceived in 2013 to explore the possibility of sharing water and wastewater resources and facilities owned by the town of Superior and the city of Louisville. The consultant was jointly retained by both communities to study the potential costs of integration. After reviewing the facilities in each jurisdiction, the consultant identified several scenarios for integration, ranging from partial to full integration. There's cost savings tied to each scenario. And so tonight we'll present that to the entire board for your review and discussion. And after the presentation, I think we'll open it up for questions and answers. Anybody see the mouse?
This one.
Did you get it? No, that's not it, Jim. Alex, Martin was the last one messing with it. Read those.
So let me introduce Patrick Radabaugh. He's with the firm of Dewberry Consultants, and he's been working, he's one of our consultants on our water and wastewater plants and facilities, and he also does some work for Louisville, so he's intimately familiar with all the facilities for the two communities, and he's been working since 2013 on the integration study.
We had a great presentation that was included in your packet, so, I mean, we...
Says you were doing it? Didn't happen, so.
Why don't you print out, Martin, will you print out the presentation and...
I've got it.
Okay. Once we find the equipment we need, we'll
Do
get
you
the
have-
presentation on the screen, but...
I think we've all got it on our screens.
We have it on.
There we go.
Oh.
Now, let's see if I can get to the right spot. All right, I can't get it in. All right, well, I can't get it into presentation mode, but we'll make do, I guess. Okay.
Where is Lisa?
So as Alex said, this is a study, an engineering study where we looked at potential cost savings through consolidation. So it's just the results of an engineering study. So it looks at the feasibility of what can we do or what would we need to do to maybe combine or partially combine these two systems. So let's start with the town of Superior. Right now we're about 12,500 people. And we're looking at building out around a little over 17,000 people. So we're going to gain about 5,000 people. Including that 5,000 people, we need to have water and wastewater service. We currently have a water plant that can do about 5.5 MGD, million gallons per day. And our wastewater plant is rated for about 2.2 MGD. What are our drivers? Well, on the water plant side, the water plants are sized by how much water you need to produce on the max day. Now, water plants are different than wastewater plants because we have these storage tanks in our water distribution system which help
reduce some of the peaks on our plant. So our wastewater plant, we're going to have higher peaks, but our water plant, we may produce more water, but it gets dampened by the time it gets to the wastewater plant. So we may need to produce like 5 MGD for a couple hours during one part of the day in the summer, but it will never, our wastewater plant will never see that, if that makes sense. It's just an instantaneous demand in the system, and it gets dampened out by the tanks. So we have a max day production of about 2.4 MGD now. We project in the future will be about 3.5. Both those numbers are below the capacity of our current water plant. We should be fine. We're ready to go? The one things we could need to do, we need to improve some redundancy over at the water plant and reduce some resiliency. Last thing, which we're working on right now, the town really has no backup water supply. A lot of municipalities, in fact almost every one, has some sort of potable water connection to a neighboring community. In the event that something happens at their water plant, water can still get into your system. You can still have water at your homes. Right now the town of Superior does not have one. So if something happens at the water plant, you have about a day's worth of water in the system, and then no more water. On the wastewater side of things, average day right now we're about 1, and the max month we're about 1.2. At build-out we're looking at about 1.7 MGD. We have Regulation A5 coming down from CDPHE, and that actually, I don't know how familiar you are with that, but Regulation A5 came about through some EPA nutrient regulations that started in the 90s, and they started looking at what can we do to reduce nutrients in our waterways. And they went through this giant study and kind of left it up to the states to implement. And Colorado and a few other states developed some technological standards to that plants or wastewater plants had to meet when they're discharging nutrients to the streams. So Colorado standards, they passed them in 2012. For plants that are existing, we have to meet an effluent total inorganic nitrogen limit of 15 and an effluent phosphorus limit of 1. That is a drastic reduction from what they have now. And that means a lot of improvements to wastewater plants. And the state is implementing those criteria right now, and they're doing it by river basin. So last year, or this year in 2015, I believe it's the Arkansas Basin. In 2016, I think it is the South Platte Basin. I'm not sure what 17 is, but 18 is the San Juan River Basin. So each plant that's bigger than 2 MGD will be impacted by these requirements. It's not just plants along the Front Range. So that's coming down our way. It's also going to affect Louisville. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. In Superior's wastewater plant, well, not much has been done to it for 20 years, and there's a lot of things that need to be done. The equipment's getting old, it's getting aged, it's wearing out. Jim's spending a lot of his time dealing with the operator staff to try to get things managed together to make it functional, because it's just so old, it's falling apart. It's a lot like having a car that's 20 years old. Yes, they still work, they still function, but sometimes they take a little more work, a little more love to keep them operating. So Superior's needs, we need a potable water system interconnect so that we can have potable water coming into our distribution system in the event something happens at our water plant. And we have about 18 million in improvements that we need at the wastewater plant just to meet these new regulations coming down through CDPHE. Those will get input into a new discharge permit next year, and we'll probably have a 3 to 5 year compliance schedule to meet those limits. Questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do have a question.
All right.
So 3 to 5 years, you need to put in these improvements in order to meet Regulation 85.
Yep.
And is there any kind of federal aid, state aid, DRCOG aid, any kind of aid that will come our way?
We just applied for and received $400,000.
Mm-hmm.
It's federal grant money and state grant money. Other than that, it's unfunded. There was approximately $16 or $17 million that came out to various agencies. Boulder got some money, Louisville got some money, Durango got some money, Pueblo, Colorado Springs. And they were given anywhere between $500,000 and $1 million usually.
Piddlings.
Are you saying that the 400 we got is it?
That's all that's available for grant money. Now there's loan money, but there's no other grant money available.
I mean, this is an ongoing thing. Are you sure it's not coming forward in the future?
It could be, but the last money I know that was approved came out through FEMA money, and all that FEMA money is going to get spent. So if a portion of that FEMA money wasn't spent, it could go to wastewater plant improvements, but it's my understanding that all that money's been spent. It's my understanding. I don't work at CDPHE, so if I'm incorrect on that, I apologize, but that's my understanding of talking to some people over at CDPHE.
Is there an absolute deadline
For
meeting these the Regulation 85?
that will come about in our next permit, and our permit will come out in 2016, and we'll get our compliance schedule then. So right now, actually.
So you don't know the date, okay.
No. Right now, our permit is actually administratively extended. It expired last year, but the state is trying to get to a level where they're doing all the wastewater plants in one river basin at a time, and for some reason Superior was not in the time frame that everybody else's is. So in 2016, we'll get a new permit limit, and that will have a compliance schedule. Typically, they've given anywhere between, they usually give about 4 years for a compliance schedule.
And then after
Typically.
that, is there a penalty?
Yes.
How steep is it?
$25,000 a day.
Oh, jeez, okay.
And I think we have to meet permit samples once. It's a 30-day average, so 30 days times $25,000 a day is $750,000 a month.
Okay.
So, yes.
Okay, thanks.
But the key in your questions is these are state mandated and largely unfunded by the state.
In a recessionary timeframe.
Exactly.
Or post-recessionary timeframe. It seems like from my perspective, it seems like we're missing something here.
Yeah.
Because post-recession, municipal budget's down, and you have a hugely expensive mandate.
That's something to take up with the state, but I can tell you from the history of it, the EPA started developing these regulations in the 90s, and they've been whittling their way through the system for a while. I know Colorado started talking about it sometime around 2008, 2010. So Montana just passed them, Florida just passed them. So it's working its way through the system, and it will be.
What is our plan on funding this?
Jim and Alex and Paul have been working to, it's included in the budget. It's beyond the 5-year CIP that we have currently, but we will have to issue a bond. It's the only way.
It's a big ouch.
So Louisville, their current population is about 18,000. They're looking at going up to a build-up population of about 23. They have 2 water plants, a 5 MGD plant and an 8 MGD plant, and their wastewater plant is currently rated for 3.4 MGD.
If I might, the same data on Superior, if I interpret it as correctly, we have plenty of water capacity between the 2 communities.
You're spot on. You're spot on.
So is it the problem just the interconnect?
I'll get to that in a few minutes. If I can postpone, if I don't answer your question, please ask it again, but I think I will answer your question in a few minutes. So their infrastructure drivers, their max day demand actually exceeds their water treatment plant capacity. So combining them, we have enough actually.
So they need our water.
They need your water. Yes. Their wastewater plant, they're doing about 2 MGD now. They're looking at 2.5 at build-out. They had a compliance schedule for ammonia. And ammonia is part of Reg 85, but ahead of that, they got a compliance schedule for a new lower ammonia limit. And ammonia is toxic to aquatic life in streams. And their plant couldn't meet its rated capacity at the new lower ammonia limit. So we could look at derating the plant, but we derated the plant. They actually didn't have enough, they didn't meet the state's redundancy requirements. You need to have 2 treatment basins. They only have 1. So they were stuck into a bind and cornered. So they were looking at upgrading their plant to meet these new lower ammonia limits, and they just decided to go all the way and meet their Reg 85 limits now ahead of schedule. Instead of doing 2 major constructions in a short timeline, they're doing just 1. And That's going out to bid in another month or so, and it'll be completed in 2017.
So stay here. They need our water and they need our wastewater.
No, they don't need your wastewater.
They
No.
flip back to the other one. Short-term memory here is gone. Okay, gotcha, okay.
So your plant is rated for 2.2, but it cannot do 2.2.
Do we need their wastewater?
Yes.
Okay, they need our water, we need their.
Yes, it's a
Therein
yin
lies
and
the-
yang.
Man, I thought both our plants were built double the size of what we needed because we were anticipating building out across McCaslin. So how could we not be able to handle? I thought we were always, no problem, could handle all of it.
I can take part of this.
Good.
On the wastewater side of things, so back when they built plants 20 years ago, we didn't, or 30 years ago, we didn't look at things like ammonia. We just looked at a measure we call BOD, biochemical oxygen demand, and that is really easy to remove. So your plant could probably meet 2.2 just so we had to treat ammonia. The problem, just BOD. If we want to treat ammonia or total inorganic nitrogen, which Reg 85 requires, your plant can't do it, not to the limits that are required. So that's why. So it's like had you bought a car 30 years ago and its gas mileage might have been 20 miles to the gallon or so, and now you can get a car that's 35, sometimes pushing 40 or 50 if you get a hybrid. It's just a matter of technology improving. So
So we always had the water. That wasn't the issue.
yeah,
It
water's
was-
okay.
It was clarifying the water, basically.
Well, on wastewater, your water plant is okay.
Okay, on wastewater. All right, thanks.
There's a few things we need to do to your water plant to get it up to 5.5, but they're pretty minor, relatively speaking. They're not $18 million worth of upgrades.
That's really disappointing because I've been telling residents for 6 years that no, we're fine wastewater treatment and water treatment for years to come because we built out so much when we built Rock Creek. So this is really surprising to hear.
This was all pointed out to us in budget, that we had these unfunded new requirements coming down. And that,
You just didn't know how much.
But I agree
I
with
thought that was-
Chris,
I thought
that's
that
a
was different, though. I thought
relatively
that
new
was-
piece of.
yeah.
yeah, it's
the
last year or two.
Yeah.
I remember those conversations, but it wasn't, I didn't think it was because we couldn't handle up to this point where we could be after our build-out, correct? Is that what you're saying?
One more time?
We couldn't foresee when this plant was constructed that the EPA would have these new standards
Yeah.
that they would impose on the states and the municipalities to treat.
So one
To
of the
treat
things,
wastewater, though,
Right.
you're talking, okay.
yeah, so one of the things we're looking at, like when we're designing Louisville's plan, we're laying it out for what's in the current regs now. We're taking a crystal ball and trying to guess what they're going to be doing in 15 years-ish. And we've left space for it and, put a placeholder in their budget. Hey, you're going to have to spend, you might have to spend another $8 million in 10 years to meet those limits. And your plant would be the same way. I mean, regulations are always going to get tighter as we get more urbanization. That's the problem.
So they can go a 10 or 15-year period without giving you any recommendations of what you might want to start changing. So you go from this level, all of a sudden you got to be at this level.
Well,
Increments.
it's not that stepwise like that. So right now, one of the things they're looking at is endocrine disruptors and hormones, which I'm sure you're reading about in the news. You've at least seen some news articles on it. And it's really, really expensive to treat right now in wastewater, but as time goes on, that cost will come down and in line. So, I mean, we know, and I don't know what they were thinking 30 years ago. Had you asked me 30 years ago, or the people in my office who have 40 years of experience, they would have designed it for ammonia removal. I can't go back in time and guess why they didn't.
I have a question. So the $23.7 million that you're saying is going to cost Louisville, and they've already got it in, they're going to have it, that money's going to be spent by 2017.
Yep.
They bonded for it.
Yeah, they bonded for it. So our number, is it just is just a factor of their number? Our 18 million, you're just guesstimating?
No,
Or you
no,
know
no,
for-
no, 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 no. No, we went back, we looked at some of our existing infrastructure. So when we put together the cost estimates, we we went through your existing infrastructure and tried to reuse as much as we could. So we're, if I can jump ahead a few minutes, I guess. One of the things we are planning on doing, or trying to look at doing, is reusing a portion of your existing treatment basins and repurposing them for what they do now and incorporating them into something else in the future. So that helps keep the cost down. But a lot of things we just have to redo. So it does. So they're all unique. It's not just a function of their cost. It's unique to your system. We tried to incorporate as much existing infrastructure as we could and meet the design criteria.
Okay, because the ratio is basically they're 50% more population than us, and that.
Yeah,
it's kind of, if you look at it.
It
the
may
numbers
look
of the
like that, but I
ratios,
can tell you there are far more numbers
Okay.
in there than.
We're cleaner.
Well, no, we're not cleaner. If we were cleaner, it'd be less than $18 million. You know, because it shows that we're as dirty as they are. So.
Yeah, and there's a lot of communities that are, I mean, unfortunately, looking the same thing. I've been working on a facility plan down in Durango also, and they're they haven't done anything in their plant in 30 years, and their cost, I can tell you, was a lot higher than $18 million. It's a lot higher than Louisville's $23 million.
So where do the nutrients come from out of our potable water that goes into our refuge? I mean, is it, we can't
Can
be
we be honest?
irrigating, huh?
It's urine.
Oh, okay, all right, it's ammonia.
Yeah.
Primarily.
Yep.
Okay.
And hormones.
Yeah, well.
all those
Yes.
drugs they're throwing down there, yeah. Down
Yes,
the toilet.
don't throw your drugs down the sewer.
Do not throw your drugs on the toilet.
So what's the proposal, I guess?
That's where he's going.
All righty. So one of the things we looked at was, well, maybe we can reduce costs if we try to share some of these infrastructure things. Now, mind you, this is just from an engineering perspective and not necessarily political perspective. So this is just engineering, the feasibility of it. So what our goals were is we could optimize use of existing facilities, share resources, and try to reduce some capital expenditures. So on the potable water side of things, Louisville needs water treatment plant capacity. So Superior's got some. In order to make sure that we could combine these systems, we looked at several things. We looked at raw water, we looked at water quality, what we need to do to actually connect the two systems, and how do we make that work. So oddly enough, on the raw water side, you both have similar water systems, and we can move raw water around really easily. That's the point of this chart without going into too many details, but we can take water from, say, Louisville, South Boulder Creek water, and get it into Superior's terminal reservoir pretty easily, or we can go through the combined pump station and get it over here pretty easily.
Are those all in place now, or is some going to be built?
This is all in place, as I understand it. So I think you're doing improvements to the combined pump station right now. So we might have to put another pump in there if we had to, but.
So basically, it's opening a valve and
Yep.
pumping. Okay.
Everything's present to make this work.
So there's really very little cost.
Very little cost on the raw water side of things, right? So getting raw water before it's treated. Treated water, we have to do a few things at your water plant. The old disinfection requirements for water treatment used to be just put in a half an hour of contact time and call it good. Well, now they've changed those limits starting back in the 90s with the interim surface water treatment rule, and they've gotten a little stricter. So our plant, even though it's rated for 5.5, if somebody really looked at it, it can't really do it, to be honest with you. So we need to upgrade it to improve our disinfection. We've got to upgrade a few pumps and just some distribution piping. So our plant sits really nice and high on a hill, but if we want to get that water over to Louisville, because we have to go, we're going to add a couple more MGD through those pipes, we need to increase the size of those pipes just so we don't have so much head loss. They're actually relatively minor
And we need to do
improvements.
that for what reason? To meet existing needs plus Superior Town
Yes.
Center build-out needs?
It's a function of all three of those. So Superior Town Center, you need to upgrade some piping anyway also. But I'm going off of memory here, but I want to say to do Town Center, we need to go to 16-inch pipe. To incorporate Louisville, we have to go to an 18-inch pipe. It's right along there. It's like we have to go up one pipe size. So we need to do it for town center anyway. To get Louisville in there and keep the water pressures high enough, it's like one pipe size higher. Okay, so.
I'm learning.
Shared cost then would be the actual interconnect themselves. So we could connect Superior's distribution system to Louisville's distribution system and move water back and forth. Oddly enough, those two systems are really similar. So Superior's low zone is really similar to Louisville's mid zone. So we can move that water back and forth pretty easily, and it actually works out really nicely.
This is wastewater now.
This is water. We're still talking water.
Okay, why does it say treated water on that thing?
So.
To treat the.
Yeah, it's
treat
treated
the raw
potable
water.
water.
We have to
I
take
could
the
change
raw
it.
water and
Yeah.
treat it.
Yeah, we need to be
Potable.
clear here, because
Okay.
it's treated potable water.
This is potable.
Okay, I'm,
So
that word in there.
drinkable, you can
Yes.
drink
Okay.
it.
I'm sorry. So when we refer to
More than
wastewater,
once.
it's effluent.
Gotcha.
So, wait, so the sharing of the water at this point, they don't need the treated water, they just need
No, they need the treated water.
They need
They
it.
need the treated
because they can't
potable water.
treat
Yes, they cannot
enough
treat
of the
enough.
raw water.
But so they, in theory, they could give us 2 MGD of raw water. We could get it there through the existing system. We could treat it, send it through these pipes, get it over to their system.
That sounds crazy.
But it also then gives
Yeah.
us a backup supply.
Yes. So let's say for some reason our water plant went out, we could get 2 MGD back from them and have water in our system. We wouldn't, our residents wouldn't get thirsty.
Or like a
angry.
strainer.
Well,
I'm-
I wouldn't want to drink it if it's just through a strainer, but. So, in Louisville, they don't really need to do any improvements on their end. So our improvements would just basically be to get our water plant up to actually doing a little over 5 MGD of water. And then we'd have to do some combined work in the interconnects. I think it's budgeted for next year. The design's underway right now.
This year.
Okay, this year, sorry.
Am I understanding correctly, though, these 3 bullet points under Superior are necessary only to meet Louisville's needs?
Yes.
We currently meet all our needs in Superior just fine,
Except we don't have a backup.
except for the
Yes.
backup.
And that's a backup of the treated water, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Stay tuned for the
Potable
wastewater
water.
side.
Yes. So
Okay.
this is current regulations.
Gotcha.
Okay, I was just going to ask, and I'm going to answer
ahead.
it by myself, but we have a backup water supply that we are building. It's a reservoir for the Windy Gap,
Yep.
and that is raw water, right?
Yes.
So we just need a backup, we need another basin for our treated water.
Well,
It comes down to storage.
storage.
Okay.
Yeah, so the Windy Gap is going to store raw water. So in Colorado, right, we're getting a bunch of storage right now in the mountains in the form of snow. It comes down, we collect it. We can store it, so by August, we still have water. And it'll come, if I understand Windy Gap correctly, it's coming down through the Southern Supply water pipeline, through the pump station and over to Superior.
And that really actually only helps us on dry years, because we're
Yes.
completely fine on wet years.
That's my
And we haven't
understanding.
had a dry year in a long time, really.
So, I mean,
Yeah, let me
I
just,
still want to ski, so please.
in terms of the water, what we're doing right now is we're designing an interconnect, and we're going to be building that this year. And that's more of an insurance policy for both our communities in case a plane hits the water tank or some emergency happens. We can draw on their treated water for several days or months or whatever, so they can supply us in an emergency, and we can supply them in an emergency. We can also take one or more water treatment plants down during the winter and just operate, instead of 3 plants, operate with 2 plants or maybe even 1 plant during the winter. That's something we could talk about in the future.
which is a cost savings.
In terms of improvements to our plant, we're not going to make those improvements for capacity unless Louisville needs it. They don't need it, they might not need it now, but they may need it for their build-out. So we're not going to do those improvements until
Could
they
you
want us to.
answer Deborah's question? Because I'm sort of like Chris in this whole thing. You know, we've been assured in terms of these ample water supplies.
Mm-hmm.
So to actually even hit us with the fact we don't have a backup is a little surprising to me, because Windy Gap's been in the mix. A lot of things have been in the mix to assure us that we're actually overbuilt on water supply.
Well, there's-
I understand this
From a
interconnect.
supply standpoint.
From a supply
Right.
standpoint, you should have plenty.
Yeah, we have plenty from a supply standpoint. But it's just in that emergency standpoint, if something catastrophic happens, we don't have that, covered. And
What would be examples of catastrophic events,
a plane hits our water tank,
Yeah.
okay?
Things like that, or someone blows up our water treatment plant. There are things like that who knows what's going to happen? So that's the type of thing we're
Right.
planning for with this interconnect. But it could allow us to do other things as well.
Is there any scenario where the water treatment plant could break down and we would not have water supply, or treated water for days?
Yeah, that's what they're
If
just
a
talking
plane-
about.
No, I mean, not an airplane or
Catastrophic. Well, equipment. There's a lot of things.
Equipment or,
Under normal circumstances, I'd like to think that wouldn't happen.
okay. So there's no,
Put it this way, you've had it
Maintenance that could-
for 30 years, you've had your water plant roughly, and it hasn't happened.
okay.
And we have a day's worth of water, you said, sitting in the system.
Yep.
So you have 24 hours basically to get the.
Right, we have redundancies built
Right.
into the plant. We have 4 filters, we have several clarifiers. So, so we have redundancy, so we can take some
Yeah.
equipment offline to handle things.
All right, I'm going to ask one more dumb question.
Then, no dumb questions.
You've had enough of the dumb questions, I'm sure. If the water goes back and forth in these pipes, it's being treated here and treated there and sent back, does that degrade the water quality?
So I think the question you're really asking is water age. So water age, yes, is bad. We don't like our water to get to be like a week old in our system. Your water never happens, that way you get plenty of turnover. The way that this would be designed is the same concept. You wouldn't have some water molecule in the system for 7 days. You'd want to turn it over every 2 or 3. Because you're right, you don't want old water.
Does the purified water run through the same pipes as the raw water?
No.
I thought
No.
that's what she was
No.
asking.
No.
Okay.
No.
They're
Entirely separate systems.
discreet, right, separate, okay.
And wastewater is
Thank
another
God.
entirely separate system.
Hopefully,
Yes.
unless
Yes.
there's a flood.
Well, you're going to go up to the slide where you're talking about the water system costs.
Yes.
And I need to ask a question. If we said that we're doing the interconnect now in this year's budget, that $1 million already, that $1 million interconnect cost is already in our budget for this year?
Half of it. Because we're splitting it with Louisville. They're paying half and we're
Yep.
paying half.
Okay, and that's an even better answer. I love it.
I saw that
I
in the
love that
budget.
even better. So,
Yeah, so these are total costs.
okay. So the $1 million is already covered in this year's budget, but none of these other ones are yet.
No.
Okay. Now, the distribution system, I'm sorry.
No
I'm
worries.
looking at that.
No worries.
So the distribution system, we were just talking about that we need to make the pipe bigger
Yep.
for the Superior Town Center.
Mm-hmm.
So is that $1 million up there to raise it to the 18-inch pipe from the 16-inch pipe? Or is it the total cost
That's
to
the-
even build it out for the Superior Town Center as well?
That's both. You're right at the line.
Okay, so the $1 million there should basically come from the fees that we're going to get for tap fees and development for the Superior Town Center. Should pay for that $1 million.
There is, yes, so as part of the public improvements for the town center, there's a new line in McCaslin, but there's a certain size of line that serves that development,
Uh-huh.
and then there's a certain size of line that we need to serve Louisville.
Right, but we're
and
talking about the
the town would
2-inch
pay the
difference.
the
Yeah.
difference in the
That's-
cost.
Okay, but I think that, to help us feel a little bit more comfortable about some of these numbers, and we haven't even got to the wastewater yet, but, we're only talking about this.
Yeah.
This $1 million, the preponderance of it for the distribution system should come out of the public improvements funds for the Superior Town Center. And so it's not new money or we're going to have to come up with.
You're saying that is the revenue source?
Yes, that's a revenue source. And then the interconnect, we've already got that budgeted, half of it in our budget and half of it's in Louisville's. Okay. And then the treatment modifications, did you say we will do that when it's necessary to do that?
That's when I would do it.
Okay.
I would just leave it as a line item, you know it's out there.
Okay, so, and would that be shared as well with Louisville?
They would pay most of it.
They would pay most of it. Okay, I even like that answer better. See, Alex, all right, good. Stay there, don't move. Okay, go on. That was good.
And one presumes the first bullet, they're paying entirely.
No, that's what this adds up to,
Yeah.
down here.
Yeah,
All of
6
these
million, all
things
adds
add
up.
up to 6 million.
Well, no, total cost is $3.5 million. I thought that was a total of the integration
Oh, no, the
bullet.
6 million, so that's, we're comparing those two. So the 6 million is, if Louisville had to upgrade their water treatment plant, that would be the cost.
Oh, and an
So
integrated
we can
system is
save
$3.5
We
million.
can save them, yeah, so yeah, it's.
So
okay.
in this, scenario, we're saving $2.5 million on the water side, if we combine, just for an engineering perspective.
We're saving Louisville.
Oh, don't worry, your savings are coming.
What do
Stay
we?
tuned.
Your savings are coming.
Wastewater treatment plant.
Stay
Okay.
tuned.
Yeah.
But I want the balance sheets,
Stay tuned.
Oh, it's going to,
yeah, I tried to make sense of these on my own, and I
You'll
couldn't.
get some of those answers in the
Yeah.
latter part of the
Well, we got 10 minutes.
Yes,
Yeah, 10
let's-
minutes to
let's
go.
get there.
all righty.
We started.
So, wastewater, the questions we try to answer, how can we do it? Both plants we know need to be upgraded for Reg 85, and how do we get the wastewater where it needs to go? And reuse water, another form of water that we use. So, the new growth in Superior is primarily in town center, and it requires a lift station. But it's possible we can just actually connect that pipe right across on I-36 and send to Louisville by gravity and not deal with the lift station.
And how much did that lift station cost in the in the Superior Town Center proposal?
Yeah, 1 point.
Say it again?
1.5 million.
Yeah. So we looked at several alternatives. The first one is we're going to stay independent. Everybody keeps doing what they're doing. The second one, we're going to eliminate the lift station and send all the flow to Louisville. The third one is we're going to eliminate the lift station, and we're going to take the digesters, which are a major source of odors at the Superior wastewater treatment facility, send those over to Louisville. Alternative 4 is we're just going to get rid of Superior's wastewater plant altogether and send it all to Louisville. And alternative 5 is basically a take on alternative 2, except we're going to leave the lift station in place. So it's kind of a quasi, a mix of the two. So we'd keep the lift station in place and put off basically wastewater integration until we had to get our compliance schedule in line for Reg 85 in 2020 or so.
I need more explanation on 5. I'm not understanding it.
On 5, so the Superior Town, the Town Center lift station, we're going to construct that. And we would construct that and operate it until the compliance schedule for Reg 85 dictated we upgrade our plant, at which point in time we send wastewater over to Louisville at that time.
And what's that projected date?
I would guess it's right around 2020. 2020 or 2021.
So we construct a $1.5 million lift station for 5 years' worth of use? Is that what I'm hearing?
So that we wouldn't have to spend all of this money then to do all the wastewater treatment, which will at the end of that time send all over to Louisville. That's the trade-off, so.
Yeah, it's
really basically then push all
yeah,
that
it's
waste.
a matter of moving money.
Yeah,
You're
moving monies
postponing
around.
some spending.
Okay.
What happens to the lift station then, after that 5 years, and when we start with Regulation
It's a
85?
great big outhouse.
No, the state will still require redundancy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it'll still be very important to
Yeah.
keep that, so. And plus, the development will pay for that, it's gonna be a budgeted CIP cost for us, so. It's kind of
So, walking through them real quick, this is the upgraded plants. So you can see on Superior's plant, we're going to bump out more treatment basins and put in more clarifiers. On Louisville's plant, we're basically building a new plant on the east side of their site. Alternative 2, in Superior's case, we'd still have to do some minor treatment plant modifications to your plant just because a lot of it's old. We'd have to modify the collection system just a little bit to make sure we send enough wastewater that our flow to our wastewater plant is less than 1 MGD. That's a regulatory requirement. Louisville, we just build enough capacity then to increase their treatment plant capacity by about 0.6 MGD, and we'd increase the size of their reuse system so we could get more reuse water back.
With this alternative, we become more dependent than on Louisville, right?
You know, that's a question
think
that we
so.
didn't try to answer within this study, but it depends upon how the agreement was set up.
Well, if we're eliminating the lift station, and we're just going directly back and forth to Louisville, then
In
we're
that case,
dependent on
yes.
that.
If you set up some other different arrangement, you know, there are different types of arrangements you could set up to make it so it wouldn't seem dependent. But it depends. That's a political question that we did not try to answer in this study. Because that answer is a lot different than the engineering side of things. This is just an engineering perspective.
Okay.
But even from an engineering perspective, it's more dependency.
Yes.
Well, it's all dependent upon one plant, yes. But right now, you're dependent upon your plant, so. Alternative 3, we're going to also consolidate our solids handling at Louisville's plant. So in Spear's case, we'd upgrade your treatment plant a little bit, put a little bit larger WAS pumps, a small little force main to carry our solids over there. And Louisville, we'd increase the treatment capacity a little bit and then the additional reuse capacity. Alternative 4, we just decrease we knock out the entire Spear wastewater plant, put in a lift station. We've actually looked at this. It is possible actually to send it over to Louisville's plant by gravity with one large cut, and that would be a study in the future to determine if that's really feasible or not, because it gets really deep. It's about 50 foot deep. In this case, the one combined plant would be about 4.2 MGD, and we'd have to increase their reuse system significantly so we can get the reuse water back. Alternative 5, where we're constructing a lift station and using our infrastructure basically until the state won't allow us to anyway. Our goal would be to get the treatment plant capacity below 1 MGD and then send the rest of the wastewater over to Louisville. So I'll try to explain these costs quickly. So I have the alternatives basically on the left column. The total cost, so everybody's spending, both combined municipalities, in the second column, and that has the total construction cost on the top and a net present value, including an estimate of O&M on the bottom. And then I broke it up into the two costs for the two respective municipalities. So for this level of study, what we said is Louisville's costs are going to stay the same, and any additional infrastructure we construct at their plant are going to be paid for by Louisville. So, or excuse me, by Superior. So, all in all, what this study shows is that Superior can save significant amounts of money on the wastewater side by integrating, depending upon what level of integration we'd like to go to. So if we don't, we're looking at spending about $21.4 million. If we go with the lift station, the partial integration, alternative 5, we're about $18 million. But the one thing that this does not take into account is capital sharing and the timeline of those expenditures. If that makes sense.
And your net present value is how many years?
20.
And did I read in here correctly that staff's choice was alternative 5?
Yes.
So what we're recommending is alternative 5, because we don't think we can get all the agreements. Louisville's not going to have their treatment capacity in place until 2017, so we have 3 or 4 years that we don't think we can get too far down the road with integration. So with 5, we'll have a lift station in place. We'll keep working on integration. So when we get to a point where we have to upgrade our plant, we'll be having negotiations with them to see whether it makes more sense for them to do some upgrades and do more integration. So that's the path we're proceeding along in terms of the wastewater.
2 quick questions.
Okay.
So Louisville's costs are the same regardless of...
Right, they're going to upgrade their plant regardless.
Okay, so what's the best benefit for them? Or what is the benefit?
I mean, on the wastewater side, there isn't a great benefit for them to...
Their benefit comes on the water side.
Yep.
The raw water, the treated water.
Oh, wait, that's...
Not raw, the treated.
Well, it's raw that gets treated, yes.
So is Louisville only
It's-
interested in a relationship with us if we agree both to wastewater and raw water?
No, I mean, we've been, and Joe, you may want to chime in here, we've had a couple of meetings on this, and they seem to
Yeah.
be open to exploring this.
This has come up in the Joint Issues Committee, and it's where it first came up. And we already have started on the water part.
So on the water side, I think we'll see how it goes. We're designing the interconnect now. We've drafted an IGA that kind of spells out how is this going to operate if we take water or you take water, what are we going to charge? So all that stuff is going to be, come to you and over the next couple of months. So we'll see how those negotiations go with that type of IGA. So we want to prepare you for some steps in integration. We don't know how far we're going to go.
I'm failing to see how this helps Louisville, other than they get some treated water. It seems to me that maybe their costs might be more just to get what they want. Am I correct? I mean,
One more time?
well, what is their cost in any one of these scenarios?
It's 23.7.
Yep.
So then how is
I
this?
can tell you, we just completed the construction cost estimate, it's actually north of 26 million.
So in none of these scenarios does it save them even a dime
For the wastewater.
For the wastewater.
for the wastewater?
It's the water side.
It's the water side.
But there are
But how
no
is that-
economies of
wait.
scale for them.
If it helps them on the,
There are economies of scale if everything were done at once, there'd be some economies of scale. It would be cheaper on a per gallon basis to build a 4.2 MGD plant versus a 2.5 MGD plant. But that's not happening. And this level of study, that does not take that into account.
so what is that, the treatment water worth to them in dollars?
Right, what does it save them?
The
Correct.
treated water, so if they don't have to expand their water treatment plant, they save $6 million.
Okay, that's the piece I'm missing
Right, no.
here. Okay,
Well, they save,
Okay, we're going to have to wrap
There we
up
go.
yeah,
here.
I know.
pretty
There's $6
soon.
million, but half, they pay half of the $3.5
Yeah.
million cost.
so they don't save a full 6 million.
No, but they save a ton. They only pay 1.75 million
Yeah.
for what they would have to pay $6 million for. So it's pretty
Yeah.
big savings to them.
It's fairly close to what our savings would be on the wastewater side of the way.
Right.
Yeah.
Can I ask my second question?
Yeah.
So my second question is, it appears that alternative 5 gives us the most flexibility. So if something happened, say we have 2 different boards in place in both towns in 15 years from now, and there's something terrible that happens between the relationship, we can go back on alternative 5.
I want to,
But
so it's not my name?
We're almost out of time, so I want to finish this comment. The previous boards from years and years ago that negotiated these deals on the property over here, I still don't understand how that deal came to be what it is, but it is what it is. I think that there should have been precautions put in place that if the relationships went south, that we would have repercussions on that deal. So I think that the alternative 5 seems to be the best opportunity for us.
So I want to
From that
clarify
perspective.
one thing on alternative 5, which is a potential hangup. So this cost to upgrade your plant assumes, from a regulatory perspective, that you are only treating 1 MGD after Reg 85 impacts you. If you treat more than 1 MGD, you will have to upgrade your plant to meet the requirements of Reg 85.
So
Which is another $18 million.
Well, that's,
Or we don't know what it is.
no, it's $18 million to do the whole thing right now, but if we do, there's some improvements we're already going to do as part of this alternative 5.
Yeah.
We just won't go the whole way.
Right, but that 18 million
Okay,
isn't the
we're-
same 18 million that you talked about
It's not,
for
no.
Reg 85. So that's the thing I think that got confusing too, is that
Yes.
you talked about $18 million twice. And
It's
it could be
it's
18 plus
just kind of
18.
coincidence that
It's the
this
same
number
number.
and that number are $18 million
I would like to see, and I know we're out of time, is that we really need to understand this a little better from a numbers perspective. Where's the money going to come from potentially, like half from Louisville for certain things from the potable side? And then also this, I'd like to dig down into these numbers. What's the difference between the 13.8 all the way to the 18 up to the 21.4? What is the real cost associated with, I mean, for the pieces that add up to 18 million? And when do we need the money? You know, so. just
Are
a
you
little
saying
bit
all
more.
5 does not put us up to regulation 85?
Correct.
If you, so it's the way
You're
Reg
underneath the
85 is written, if you are below 1 MGD, you don't have to meet the requirements of Reg 85.
That means we can never change all 5 unless we invest on getting up to regulation 85. So that, to me, is the worst solution.
None of these include Reg 85
This is to
compliance.
avoid having to do
Right.
Yes, so what we're,
I think on where you are, next steps.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is
Next-
the
yeah.
beginning, what's the next?
Yeah, next steps, we're going to have to continue this discussion.
What we're
Absolutely.
doing is kind of a shell game. We're sending our above 1 MGD wastewater to Louisville to avoid upgrading Superior's plant if you really want it.
Yeah.
bluntly.
Well, the next step, though, is we need another work session where we can go through this
Yeah, I'll
in
look
detail.
for time at a future meeting soon, so we can continue this.
Okay.
But that absolutely puts us in jeopardy should a future board at Louisville decide we don't like the arrangement.
Okay, I'm going to adjourn the work
Thank you.
session.
Thanks.
Work session's adjourned. We're ready to jump in to...
Can we do 5 minutes?
Well, we're after 7, so I think we should just jump right
Okay.
in. You have to get up. Okay, call to order the Town of Superior Board of Trustees, Superior Metro District Number 1, Board of Directors, Superior McCaslin Interchange Metropolitan District Board of Directors, Superior Urban Renewal Authority Board of Commissioners, meeting for January 12th, 2015. Phyllis, could we have the roll call, please?
Sure. Mayor Clint Paulson,
Here?
Mayor Pro Tem Deborah Williams,
Here.
Trustees Joe Sorelli.
Here.
Rita Dozell.
Here.
Julia Gregoris.
Here.
Chris Hansen.
Here.
Sandy Pennington.
Here.
Town Manager Matt Magley.
Here.
Town Attorney Kendra Carberry.
Here.
Town Clerk Paul Simon here.
Okay, thank you. Approval of the agenda. We have one change to the agenda on presentations. Item 6B is going into the consent.
Yeah, there was a mistake on our part.
6B.
Sorry about that.
I have,
6B.
prior to approving the agenda, I'd like to pull item 7E from the consent agenda.
Okay, is it just a comment that you
No,
want to
not
make?
7E, I'm sorry. It's a question I have about 7D. 7D. So I'd like to pull
Okay.
that.
On the electrical code?
Yeah.
We could ask, I mean, if it's just a question for clarification, we can ask that at the beginning of the consent.
No, I don't.
I'd like it pulled as well.
I'd like to
Okay.
understand it.
Okay. So pull 7D. Any other changes to the agenda? Okay. Have a motion to approve the agenda as proposed. Motion by trustee Gregoris, second by trustee Williams. All those in favor? Passes unanimous. Okay, next is reports, questions, issues. Who'd like to start? Start. Trustee Pennington.
Mine's simple. OSAC meets on Wednesday, and we had the first meeting Friday as authorized at the retreat of the Phase 2 look at the indoor survey findings. So that began, and we intend to pursue that on a once-a-week basis. We actually have to take a week break because people are out of town once-a-week basis, so that we can put some speed behind that to get back with the board on what we feel the data show us. So that's all for me.
Okay, trustee Gregoris.
Last Wednesday, I attended the Superior Youth Leadership Council. What can I tell you? There's no more joyful calling in my 8 years that I've served here than spending that hour and a half with the youth. It is the best part of my service to the town. They have come up with a beautiful logo, which I think they might present today, if I'm not mistaken. So I'd like for you guys to see it. I don't know how they do it, but they come up with these incredible things. And I think at our next meeting, we're going to go over their plan, their
Right.
yearly plan, right? So I'm not going to have it here with me, but I'll just wait till they
Yeah,
present
yeah.
next week, but it's
Yeah,
just.
it's not in our packet.
Yeah, it's not, right. So just a couple of other things. As always, I don't know why this always happens when we have, the trash is out and the recycling is out, the wind is up. Like last Monday, and he was like, Rock Creek looks like a disaster zone. There's so much debris. I mean, we picked up, and we live at the end of the cul-de-sac, we get even more than, we get everybody else's, but maybe, and maybe something for the youth too. Come springtime, maybe there's a volunteer cleanup. There's just a lot of trash and debris out there, unfortunately.
Could, we have this joint thing with HOA. I'm at the receiving end of the wind as well. And if we could work with the HOA to put out some friendly neighborhood reminders, because when your recycle bin is empty, it means it blew into somebody else's yards. And it sure would be nice to show some neighborliness. And it's amazing what people put in their recycle bins, so, because I'm picking it up in my yard.
Yeah.
Anyway, so if we could have a neighborly reminder that you're responsible for your own trash.
And if it's windy, maybe, I don't know, maybe you could put a brick or something on top so it doesn't open up, because it was pretty bad last week. But, well, and the last thing is, I know next year at this time, it'll be the last college national football game I'm going to miss, but maybe we can make an exception, move this meeting to a Tuesday night and a Monday night. We always miss the college games.
I think
Well, let's
there was
think of
one
the
year we
Final
did-
Four, that's in
Yeah,
March, too.
there you go. So
That's a
anyway,
Monday
just
night
food
as
for
well.
thought. I don't know if that's allowed to, if we post it to move Monday to Tuesday, but hey, it's killing me. All right.
We're DVRing it, so if you want to come over to my house and watch it, you can do that.
And nobody can give
And I
updates.
apologize for missing the work session. My son had to use wisdom teeth pulled, and my wife had to go get medicine and all that stuff, so she just got home, so sorry that I missed it. Thank you.
Trustee Brooks?
I attended a West Connect Coalition meeting December 10th, and that is a coalition of several municipalities, RTD, CDOT, Jefferson County, and this is in regards to kind of finishing a beltway or finishing some sort of transportation that takes you from US 36 and Northwest Parkway down through to C470. And so Golden's involved, Boulder County, ourselves, Westminster, Broomfield, Jeffco, Morrison, okay. Anyhow, this coalition is being set up to come to a consensus with all of us in terms of what kind of transportation is best for the whole region, the Northwest quadrant. And so I've been meeting with these folks for probably almost a year now, and we've been discussing the charter and how we're actually going to get off the ground and create this coalition. And we've hit a point where all the changes were made on the charter, and I think Golden has now signed on, and I don't know if anyone else has signed on. Do you know?
They hadn't, Golden was the only one I knew of, at the time I asked, so.
Okay, so I'm assuming Jefferson County and Golden have signed on, and possibly Arvada. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention Arvada in that. Anyhow, we are at a point where we need to figure out whether we're going to be a part of this or not. Whether we'll be a full member or an affiliate member. A full member has, I guess, in these terms, a financial commitment of some sort, though we don't know what that would be, probably for some sort of study at first, and maybe a project when they determine what project is best. Or we would be an affiliate member where we do not have an investment of any kind. We do have a say, but not a big say. But some of the things that we were working with this charter and trying to eliminate was non-voting and voting members. So if you're not a full member, you still have the same voting rights as a affiliate, as a full member. So that was one thing that was really important when you're coming to a consensus. It needs to be a unanimous consensus among all of us and not have full members trump what an affiliate member is trying to achieve. So anyway, I guess it's kind of in our hands and what we're going to be doing with that. When is that coming forward for discussion?
We had some questions that needed to be answered, and I don't think we've gotten answers to those yet.
Didn't we
what is the
receive a letter
status?
back,
We
though?
received that email.
Yeah, we got the letter back.
Got the response.
That
but,
they're gonna take
I
care of it.
mean, I could schedule for the 26th or the 9th.
Okay, so will you have all the questions by then?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
I mean, the only question I'm waiting on, they won't have a question on funding, because they don't know.
right.
The only question I'm waiting on is who all has approved the charter.
Okay.
Goldman, I know for sure has.
But you got answers on everything else. All right. So then we'll
I mean,
be able,
At this, it sounds like the response I got from Jefferson County is they feel like it's too late in the game to
do
change the
full
membership
membership.
levels now at the moment. But I would say if we're participating, we could always ask for an amended charter at some point during the process if we want to be, moved up to a full member.
On Friday, we received that email from Matt.
I never received this email.
It was a
Yeah.
forwarded letter from somebody who forwarded it to somebody else to get the answers, right?
From Jeannie
Yeah.
Rosalon?
Nope.
Yeah, so.
I never got that.
Get that in there.
That would be,
Okay.
Well,
I sent it to the rest of the board
Important.
because when she replied to me, she replied to you two. So maybe she had your wrong email address or something.
I didn't
Maybe
get it
it might
either.
be in your junk folder, but I'll forward it
Okay.
to you, so. Yeah. So I apologize.
okay,
When
so,
she sees you on it, I didn't include you on the email to the rest of the board because you already had it, I thought, so.
okay, yeah, I was
I'll
kind of
forward it.
surprised that it wasn't in the packet today. I kind of thought we were going to get on it pretty quickly. They kind of need an answer. But anyway, that's fine. I just wonder where that part is.
But I don't think they answered that question of whether we could become a full member now or not.
I agree with you, Chris. I interpreted it that it's not necessarily too late, but because two people have already approved it, those two people would have to go back to their boards. So my attitude is if we are
So
certain
what?
right now we want to be full members, we may as well do it quick and dirty and quick and just have them go back to the two municipalities that have approved it rather than let everybody approve it and then have to have 7 or whatever the full voting member size is to it.
Yeah.
So I interpret a little differently.
And again, I don't put affiliate member in that same conversation. I say we want to be, that's the consensus I
Right.
thought I heard, is that we wanted to be full members.
Were they receptive to it, or was that just they closed the door on it?
Well, it sounded to me like they said we have to take a step back and rediscuss with the proposed coalition membership. I don't think that's just a casual go back and redo the charter. I think it would basically, they're telling us in a nice way, wait a second, where were you? Why didn't you say
That's
this
right.
earlier? And now we're going to have to go back and kind of start over. So,
That's correct.
I think
Yeah.
now's the time to do that, though.
And actually, I'm going to say, when I was at a lot of those meetings, we did discuss Superior being a full member. And so I just.
well, no,
agree
I'm
with
just saying,
that.
I'm just reacting to what she wrote in here.
Right,
And it isn't as, oh, yeah, if you want to be, that's fine. It sounded more like she was politically correctly saying, what are you doing asking this? Now we have to take a step back. But, I don't know, you're at the meeting, so it
Yeah.
just seems that they're not really looking to us to be a full member at this time.
Well, I'm concerned that they're not receptive. That is completely different than
I
agree. Right.
you weren't at the table, because I was more than at the table.
But I think, didn't we kind of tell people that this board as a whole said that we didn't want to be full members back when we were talking about this?
I think there
That
may
is
be a
not the
combo
message I said.
going
That
on
was the
here.
message that was in the newspaper. So
No,
that was
this
really
board,
unfortunate.
most of the board members said that, no, we don't want to be part of this because it'll send the wrong message and all that. So,
And
I wasn't on the board at the
We-
time, but
I
I
think we
remember
drug-
the
we
discussion, the way you're talking, Chris, that it was more, let's stay engaged,
Yeah.
involved, but not engaged as a
It
full
was more
member.
like, why would we want to?
Why would we not? Yeah, we want to be there at the table, but not necessarily be part of the coalition, because it wasn't real clear what the coalition was trying to do. And if they were doing something that would have been cross purposes to what we've been doing for the last few years, then that wouldn't really fit. So it was more, let's stay with them, as an affiliate member, see what the real agenda is
Okay,
of this group.
Why don't we circle back to West Connect at the end of the meeting, and let's continue with our weekly update, or our updates, and keep on with the agenda. So-
I would just want to make sure that we don't have to have this discussion. We just need it on the agenda to have a full vetting of everything that we need, all the information and what we need to do to go forward.
Well,
I think there is still a few more points. I'd like to make a few more points on it too. So let's do circle back to it at the end of the meeting, if that's okay with everybody.
Okay.
Okay. Do you have any other updates?
I also attended the retreat, which was probably the best retreat we've ever had. We had a couple of members from the public there, which is really nice to have that. And that's it.
Okay. Trustee Hanson?
Yep. So I'm going to break protocol just a little bit, so please don't send me to the sin bin. But I see there's a scout in the audience here tonight, and I'm assuming that he's here to fulfill a citizenship in the community? No?
I'm here to fulfill the communication convention.
Okay. Would it be okay, are there any questions that you want to ask a board member or anything for this? Okay, thank you. So 2 meetings I attended with everybody else. One, the goal planning retreat. I thought that was really good also. And then the meeting that Sandy referred to earlier. And I do want to thank again ProStack for all the hard work that they did on that community engagement process with the indoor space. That there is so much information there. Now we're taking it to the next step to evaluate some of this data that will probably produce some more work for ProStack in the near future. So thank you very much to ProStack for your hard work.
Trustee Sorelli?
So 2 meetings that I attended were Historic Commission in December. They're working on their work plan and planning their education program for April, and which will be probably a presentation by Larry Dorsey, the chair, on railroads in Boulder County. He's done this before. It's a passion of his, railroads in general. It's not firm yet, but it's looking like that's where we're going. And
Is there a date on that?
not yet.
Not yet, okay.
Probably late April, but not.
Okay.
It's not set yet, and has to be worked with the town as well. And if you haven't been over to Asti Park, there's a new swing bench and memorial plaque that was donated by by Laurel Bednar Russell, I think it's Louise Benelli Bennett and Stephen Bednar. It's a memorial for and there's a plaque that has been also prepared and put up for the memory of the families of early Superior, and in particular the Bednars and the Benellis. So that's now in Asti Park.
and I plan on having that in your report this week, so I'll have additional information.
So you can walk over and see it.
Yeah.
I might even be able to forward you pictures of it. The next meeting is, I think, this Friday, and I won't be here, and I'm hoping that somebody could sit in for me.
It's 10, right?
10 o'clock, right here in this room. So thank you. And also, there was an OSAC meeting I attended, and they're working on their work plan to have ready to submit, I think, in January, along with the Historic Commission work plan.
Both went to OSAC?
Not OSAC, I'm sorry, RCAC.
Oh.
It had an ack at the end. One of those acts.
You need the historical commission though, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Right,
I
for
need the
Friday.
Historical Commission.
For
for
10 a.m.
Friday.
on this Friday, all right.
Yeah, I can make,
Confirming that.
yeah. And that's it, I believe.
Okay, Trustee Dozan?
Okay, I attended the OSAC meeting for Sandy, because she couldn't meet on December 10th of last year. And the OSAC requested at that meeting, and it's, I think, in the agenda or in the minutes of their meeting that's in our packet, a joint meeting with ProStack in order to develop recommendations for integrating the Coal Creek Corridor vision and improvements with parcels 1 and 2 park design. So I think that's in the minutes as well. And they also requested a joint meeting with us, with the town board, which has already been scheduled, a dinner for that. And they also requested, and Alex, I don't know if he's here anymore or not, but information on the whole floodplain changes as they've been implemented and the new permitting and things that are coming about so that they can incorporate those into their Coal Creek Corridor design and improvements process that they're going to be going through this year. I also attended the DRCOG meeting on December 17th, which is where we were able to secure funding, yay, for Superior Call-in Ride. So we have $463,000 that we'll be receiving from funding through the DRCOG, the Denver Regional Council of Governments, that will then re-implement or reinstitute our Superior Call-in Ride starting later this year. So it actually comes with the funding starting in October, and we'll have to do proposals and get approvals as far as how it's going to work and how it's going to get implemented. But our call-in ride will be coming back based on funding that we received as a town through the DRCOG, and it should start either later this year or early next year, so that's a really great thing.
Is that the total cost of the program?
Total cost of the program, yes.
That includes the vehicle?
Yes, yeah, well, they provide the vehicle. The RTD provides the vehicle, see. So it's providing a vehicle to come into Superior and then do the call-in ride.
And I understand that this is just for a finite amount of time.
I think it's 2 or 3 years. Is that 3 years? So it's 3 years, and it'll, so we'll have to do a really good job of planning this and promoting it and using it. So I think in our goal, our objectives for this year, it's actually get it back, implement it, but really what we want to do is implement it right. That's our goal, is to make sure that it's put in place so we don't ever lose it again.
Right.
And that we have money that continuously comes to fund this, and that we use it well,
Right.
and we don't lose it again.
So that 460 covers the whole 2 years?
3 years.
3 years?
Yeah.
And then after that 3 years, if we have ridership that's up that meets their criteria, then they'll keep funding it, or?
No, RTD.
Then RTD?
RTD will actually put it into their budget and into their plan.
No cost to us as a town?
No cost to us.
But we'll need to have the ridership levels.
Yeah.
So we have to
Right.
promote this.
And I'm going to say that the reason why we didn't have the ridership levels was, in my opinion, was operations, RTD operations. And that is how they made it readily available to our residents.
Right.
So you would call in, but you would not get a hold of them.
Right.
Or they wouldn't show up, and then by that time, you basically said, well, forget it, it's not worth it.
And then I think the other thing that and I don't have enough data about this, but, work with the SLIC group too, Survivor Youth,
Leadership Council.
Leadership Council, I call them the, Silk Group, yeah, I call them the Silk Group, Slick Silks. But to help me remember it, SYLC is what it is now, but anyway.
Call them the yak.
Yeah. But anyway, to make sure that, I don't know, because they've been talking about transportation and connecting and things, and how do we promote it for the teens and the youth too, to be able to, I don't know how this works for sure. But we have a few months to get it right. So let's really implement it right.
When we
this
get
time.
closer, we can make it an item when we meet with the youth.
Right.
So when someone calls the call-in ride, they don't pay anything for it, or they pay
No,
a
there's a
nominal
fee.
fee?
There's a small.
There's a fee, like
Okay.
any bus ride.
Well, I think that a few months out, we need to start putting that out in the newsletter that, hey, call-in ride is back, starting here, and then just continuously put it on the
Once we know
newsletter.
When is it going to be back?
The funding doesn't start until October, the fiscal year, the governmental fiscal year, the government fiscal year. So we have to do a lot of work as far as, we have to put in place what it means, get the contract with RTD and all this kind of thing. But the thing is, we don't have to pay for it, but we need to implement it right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so that's a really good thing.
So when we get to the goals, your recommendation's great. We need to modify that language to create that plan.
Right, we need to create the
Implementation
plan and to communicate it and make sure that we get the benefit of this money that we've been granted to actually do this. Now, so that's good. And then we have two other projects that are also into the Dr. Cog funding, and those are two Superior Trail connection projects. And on next Wednesday, the 21st, is the next Dr. Cog meeting. I will not be able to make it. Sandy, can you make it? We have got to have somebody.
I'm out of town next Wednesday. Deb?
Well, I don't know how that works.
We
with
can't,
Dr.
we have to have
I
an alternate.
don't know. I'm not committing at this moment. I'm going to look at my schedule.
I don't know if you can. You have to
We need to
be
have, we've got to
official.
have somebody there, though. It's a
We
key
have to
vote,
have somebody
so-
there, and we have to have somebody who can vote. So,
And we're-
I don't
so
know.
I'll-
We could have staff go and give testimony, but we can't vote.
Okay.
So I can't vote anyway, right?
Yeah. Deborah
Oh, I'm
can't
off
vote.
the hook.
Yeah, I'm in,
I'm
So
out of town
can we-
too.
I mean, could we write a letter? I mean, if we'll figure out someone
We will,
that can go.
we need to
Can
talk
we-
about that, though, because what's happening is that the vote will happen next Wednesday as to whether or not we get our trail connection from BRT, from the bus rapid transit right over here, to Coal Creek Trail, and that's $600,000 plus that we would like to get out of the Dr. Cog funds so that we don't have to pay. Right now, it looks like we will get that. It's being forwarded and recommended to the board of the Dr. Cog to fund our second project, which is $650,000 or so, to actually make a connection from BRT, a bike trail connection from the bus rapid transit over here to the Coal Creek Trail. And that would be very, very positive for us to get that funding.
Has NVIC met yet?
Mendick met earlier, and they are recommending scenario one, which funds that project.
Because I knew that was an iffy there.
Right, but we're still iffy, because it's not
It's-
real
yeah.
clear that there are some other communities that are talking against us getting another project funded.
Do you know what communities that is?
Yeah. Not
So
our
I
most
can-
not across the street.
I can go.
They want us,
South, right?
that
I could
way.
go next Wednesday.
Can we get a new
I
appointment?
have to check with Dr.
Okay.
Cog's staff.
You can testify, certainly.
As a mayor.
Can we
Yes,
get a
you can
new
testify,
alternate
but
appointment?
it's got the prescribed voting.
But could we?
That's what I'm going to check on.
Yeah, could we appoint myself as the other alternate?
That's what I'm going
And-
to check on.
and-
I don't have an answer for you.
Okay.
tonight.
But we
Okay.
could make that change in time for the meeting next week to get a vote.
That's the
And I
question.
think it's important that we have a vote. Unfortunately, I am flying out at that time when the meeting is, so I just can't make
Okay.
it. And so
Any other updates?
and then the other project that we would like to get funded too is the BRT to Davidson Mesa, which would also get us a bike trail connection up to going toward Boulder, which would be a very positive thing as well. That's also a $600,000 project. Right now, both of those are in scenario one, and that's what people around us are saying, that why should Superior get all these projects? And they're really small projects. Their projects are $6 million, ours are $600,000, and they're complaining about that. But
And
we
you
need to work
you
that.
appeal to history, too.
Right,
A
right.
lot of times we have gotten zero.
That's why we're in here, because we've not gotten money in the past. Thank
And
you.
they're good connections.
And what?
And they're good connections.
They're perfect. They exactly fit the objective and goals of the Dr. Cog. That's what makes them even more beautiful, is they fit exactly what we're trying to do.
And
Thank
maybe
you.
a
Okay.
slide presentation for someone who comes to Dr. Cog to plead for the money, shows how much Superior has been able to receive through Dr. Cog funds in, I don't know,
And that's
15, 20
in
years.
that was in the analysis of the different three scenarios. It shows how much money we've gotten, so, but,
But not,
It's a good thing.
not through Boulder County. I mean,
You're right.
specifically Superior.
right, I understand. Good, thank you.
Okay. For my updates, I had several meetings in December, a US 36 Commuting Solutions meeting, I went to the West Connect meeting in Golden, Metro Mayor's Caucus Legislative Reception in Denver. I went to Skate with Santa, great job, Chamber of Commerce. I participated in the stocking run. I think I was one of the slowest participants in that
No,
event.
You beat me.
Okay, good. Meeting with RTD General Manager Phil Washington and a couple of other mayors and Commissioner Jones from Boulder. Toured Community Food Share. Another US 36 Commuting Solutions meeting last week. A Mayors and Commissioners Coalition meeting last week. And on Saturday, the Metro Mayors Caucus retreat at Chautauqua on Saturday.
How was that?
It's great. I have some good takeaways from that. So we'll move on to the manager.
So we have no upcoming events to announce. I also wanted to thank Chuck Sisk, who's the RTD board president, and his staff for helping us get money for Call and Ride. They were big supporters on that. And actually, we have a letter from the mayor that's going to go out to them. So
Great.
just thanking them for that. There's several reports during the break. So just some highlights. I gave you stats for 2014 on the library book drop-off. Still getting quite a bit of stuff over the year, so seems to be residents are using, which is good. Calmonte pulled their another building permit to start construction on their fourth building, so they'll have three that are under construction.
They're building is great.
So that's good news for
Do
that
you
project.
have any numbers on the sales tax for 2014 or not yet? Revenue, or how are we doing?
So we don't have final numbers, we won't until February, but we're at 1.4% for 14, which is what we budgeted, but it's less than what we've seen in previous years. I think construction has a big impact on our sales over the past year. The interchange is a mess. Some people don't like to drive it, so. And then new competition just in the region too, you know. Alfalfa's, I think, is opened in Louisville, and so there's pressure that way too, so. Hopefully, we'll see some new businesses open up here in the first quarter in the marketplace, which will help.
Okay.
Let's see if I have anything else. I think that was it for me.
Okay, town attorney,
Nothing for me, thank you.
town clerk. Okay. Trustee Williams?
And one quick thing I forgot to mention, that I went to a Louisville Library meeting, and it's a good meeting, nothing huge to report, but would like to ask this from the board and from our staff. When we move forward on the survey, the indoor survey, and we have more information on the library, could we in some way, shape, or form share that with the Louisville Library? Have a presentation for their board, yes. Some sort of presentation in what we kind of glean from it, because they're very interested. And I think it would help them in some way or for the future of what they look at, what a new library would look like, whether it's here or there. It would just be important to them.
Is that something, I mean, we can do that if the board would like us to do that.
I think in the interest of collaboration and
Exactly.
maintaining a good business relationship, something is in order.
I guess the only concern I would have about that is just, let's make sure it's in a form to where it's not just thoughts or preliminary, because people can latch on to things that are
It's gotta be
preliminary.
carefully constructed.
And then they start either getting excited or making decisions based on something that may not be a final plan. And so let's be cautious with that.
And actually, the only kind of presentation I would like to deliver there is a fact-based survey that we can share, you know, any of our data that we can share on the Louisville Library. So I'm not asking for some synopsis of what we think it said. I'm asking for what data we glean from it.
Just from the survey, not what we're thinking as far as what our future.
Right.
Not what we're
We haven't
thinking
had those
future.
discussions.
We don't know that.
We don't know.
But I think they would be interested in some of the library data. So
I would ask that a draft of that come to the board
I need-
before it's sent out.
I completely agree. I think we need to discuss it before we have any
Board.
kind of presentation for it.
Board generally okay with that?
Definitely want to discuss it, because I don't want to send them information that they're going to use to leverage
Yes.
our residents for fees and all that kind of stuff. So certainly happy to share ideas on what type of libraries people want, but not if they're going to use it against us.
Well, and
one
also
thing-
what they're using.
I
you know,
think
what
it's
the lib-
relevant to share that 80-some% are pleased with our relationship with the Louisville Library.
And I think they'd also be interested in who uses the library and for what reason.
Right.
You know, so
Okay,
there we
sounds
go.
good. Next item is public comment. Anyone from the public wish to speak to the board?
Good evening, everybody. Steve Smith, 653 Eaton Circle. I've got 3 items. I'll make them very quick. The first one is I want to thank you all for allowing me to serve on an advisory committee with you. If you don't know, I have stepped down from Parks and Rec. Really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the company, every part, every aspect of it. And I felt that I couldn't give it 100%, and I'll tell you why in just a second. The second item is in reviewing your work session, without going into great detail on this, I'll reserve my comments for the actual public comment. I would ask that all of you vet this out. It may work from an engineering standpoint, but I think it does a disservice to the superior citizen. I've got some key points that I'll bring up at that time. And then the final one is the reason that I don't think I can give 100% to the advisory council is I'm now president of the Rock Creek HOA. So I heard your comments about the trash. We have improved some of that blowing around from the days of the little bins that took off like Dorothy's house and Wizard of Oz, but it's getting better, and we would love to work with the town on that. I sat down with Joe Sorelli's group the other day, and we talked about how we can improve some recycling things in the community, so I'm really looking forward to that relationship.
I meant to mention that in the RCAC, that Steve and Jim Payne representing the HOA, well, they were individually, but they weren't speaking for the HOA, but sat in at the RCAC meeting and are starting to have allow a dialogue between our entities on particularly trash collection, and hopefully that'll be an ongoing thing. It's a step in the right direction.
Great, thanks.
By the way, the recycling thing wasn't a judgment on the HOA at all. It just happens that the wind blows and things open up.
Don't
and
have
they
trash collection on windy days.
Yeah, we have the same pain. We're trying to solve it, and maybe we can come up with an idea together, so. But again, most importantly, thank you for letting me serve you over the past little over a year. I really enjoyed it, and I appreciate what you all are doing for our town. Thank you very much.
Steve, one thing to check on those trash bins, is there a latch that can keep it closed? I know that they don't want it closed because the trucks have to dump, but...
So I actually have a design that I'm going to present to the trash company that I've been using on my own lid. I've had 4 different versions of it. The problem is always cost with the trash company. What's going to cost us? So it may be something that one of our youth group can take my design and go sell them door to door.
Okay.
So,
I mean, there must be some kind of design where you can latch on, and then when the truck lifts it up and lifts it, it opens up. Yeah, there's got to be.
the one I come up with that's best is a magnet, but you got to have full recycle, which is part of the point of what we're trying to do. Fill up your recycle bin, and the magnet works. So.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. That's
okay.
Thanks for your comments, and thank you very much for your service.
Thanks for everything you do
Post-tech.
for this
Steve, we
town.
appreciate that. Additional public comment.
Somebody I recognize her.
There it is.
Yeah, so that is the...
If you could, if you could state your name and
I'm Grace Beatty,
address.
and
Thank you.
I'm one of the members of the Superior Youth Leadership Council, and this is the logo that we came up with. And what we did here is that the mountains, since Superior has like this beautiful view of the mountains, we put the mountains in the background, and then since you have to put the name in there, you put the ribbon and then the name. That's great. And then what we're thinking of doing is putting these on T-shirts so that we can wear them at events in the town, so that we can get our word out, and also put flyers on doors, like you're doing, like running for trustee or mayor, like something like that, just to get our word out. So.
What do you guys think?
Great. Looks great.
Excellent.
Is it going to be black and white when
So that's
it's
the only,
printed?
that's the only thing that came up, was I knew you were going to say that. So we did talk about perhaps putting some color in it, but the design itself, I think, is perfect.
Yeah.
Now, the color, there could be some color in it, yeah. Do you have any suggestions?
Well, we're the tree city and we're green and all
So we
that.
can put
so
some green, yeah.
I'm seeing some green.
Or you can
going
like
in
change the color of the T-shirt to green and then keep it black and white.
Yeah, so, but
That'd be good, too.
great logo, though.
there. I'm sure you'll figure something
nice.
beautiful
Mhm.
out, but that's great.
Yeah, it is.
Great, thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
All right, additional public comment. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the Chamber of Commerce presentation.
Good evening, Heather Craycraft with the Superior Chamber of Commerce. And to save the dates, I wanted to make sure we're on your calendar. I know the mayor, town manager did pass on that tomorrow, January 13th, we're doing a ribbon cutting and the official grand opening of Brain Balance Achievement Center. That, as I pointed out on the bulletin board, the community listserv that is located conveniently over in the Superior Marketplace between Wayne Smoke Shack and Buffalo Wild Wings. So the owners, Matt and Michelle, would love to invite the whole public and obviously the trustees, and I have been in touch with the mayor, and he will be there to help me do the official ceremony right at 5:30 so that then they can do some tours and educate the public on what their fabulous business can help in our community. So I welcome you to that, and then I will be back, but wanted to make sure we also had the next ribbon cutting over in the marketplace because things are booming on Wednesday, February 11th between the hours of 4 and 6. I'm trying to figure out exactly what time we're going to cut the ribbon, but that will be for the Massage Envy that is located just south of the Super Target. So everything is going very well. The chamber is extremely busy. We're in the process of putting together the new directory for this year. So what that entails is renewing our 200 members over the next 2 weeks and then producing that publication. So we are very excited about the new year and everything that's going on. So thank you for the opportunities that you have afforded us to be in the community, and the business community is very excited about the future. So thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you as always. All right, next is the consent agenda. We've pulled item D.
D.
We've pulled item D.
Sorry.
Do we talk about that now?
No.
No.
Or we
You can approve
pass the
the agenda.
consent and then?
Right, exactly. Do the consent
Okay.
first. It will be without item D, 7D, and then, or sorry, yeah, 7D.
7D.
And then you'll move on to 7D right after that.
Okay. So do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as written? Motion by trustee Williams, second by trustee Gregoris. All those in favor? Passes unanimous. All right, 7D, which is preliminary reading of an ordinance adopting the 2014 edition of the National Electrical Code by reference. Trustee Sorelli.
Whenever we do a new code, I'd like to know in particular what, if anything, would require retrofitting in current residences, or when such retrofitting would come into effect. I don't expect anybody to be able to tell me that tonight, so we could go through the preliminary reading, but I'd hope to know an answer to that before we do the final reading of.
We'll include that in the next cover memo, and as Ernie Kern, our chief building official, will be here as well for that public hearing.
Okay, so that was my one concern.
Okay,
And
anyone
then
else?
I had the concern, if you go to, just bear with me a sec. If you go to the actual ordinance, and bottom of page 1, you'll see a paragraph that's identified as section 1-3-20. It talks about a fine of not more than $2,650 or by imprisonment not to exceed 180 days, or both. And then below it in section B, each such person shall be guilty of a separate offense for each and every day during any portion of which any violation is committed. So the way I read this, if you, and you're likely to have electrical code violation for a period of time, I mean, you could be in the slammer for a long time. So I wondered what the intent was here.
This is, just for your information, this is simply restating a section that is already in the code. So this
Right.
is already the way
That
it is.
doesn't make it right.
Well, and that is very common. Each day of any offense is that the offense continues as a separate offense, and that is the way.
Right, well.
Now, that doesn't mean that you need to charge someone with every single
But you
day.
could.
Well, but either the code enforcement officer or in the case of a criminal offense, a police officer would have to exercise some reasonable discretion as to how to charge someone. But with zoning violations, I will tell you that oftentimes we do charge more than one day. For example, I'll use weeds as an example. If the weeds remain and we give them notice and we give them notice and we give them notice and they don't cut the weeds, we can charge as many days as we want. The actual fine will be up to the judge to determine. So we
Right.
don't have the ability to assess the fine at the time that we write a summons.
Well, I'm just talking about this is an electrical code violation, so it's in your wall. Presumably, it could be detected, let's say it's not detected when you do the first thing, but you do something 3 years later and it's determined, oh, the one you did 3 years ago wasn't up to code. That's a lot of days.
This
So
would be,
3
though,
times 365?
this would be that if they came and inspected it when you put it in and you didn't fix it, it's not.
How does, yeah, I'm with Joe.
Because
How is it triggered?
Well,
and
you
when
know,
is
because
it
like our
triggered?
houses that we've been living in for several years, we can't be in violation of this code.
One would hope.
Unless we go and
We
redo
don't know
something
that.
If you go and redo something without a permit,
without a permit and we do it against and don't do it
Exactly.
per this, then we'd be in violation.
exactly.
That's pretty much what I was asking, is
Right.
when this,
But I want to know,
Yeah.
since so many homes in Rock Creek are having to be remedied, when does this kick into gear?
With
You
the
know.
permit or with the remodification of the work, you know, if you go in and modify the work yourself and it's a significant thing and then, and it requires a building permit and you don't do it per this code, then
Well,
you're in
everything
violation.
requires a building permit.
Yeah, but not
My-
everybody pulls a permit, that's the
Yeah,
other thing.
my roofing
So
repair-
if you don't pull a permit, then
Yeah.
you're in.
Yeah, I think Ernie should be here, but
Gray
not
area.
everything requires a building permit. The stuff that does require a building permit will also require inspections.
Right.
The inspection will then trigger, and it depends, if you're changing electrical work, then yes, you will need an inspection. And electric is a little bit different because the state is actually responsible for the inspections for all electrical work. So we have no say over that.
And branch circuits aren't, I mean, well, and Ernie would be better, but you're not talking about just taking out a light fixture and replacing it with a new one in your bathroom.
Pulling
You're talking
wire and
about,
pulling wire.
you're talking
Yeah.
about branching off and creating another light over here that didn't
happens.
exist over there.
All the
That
time.
would be.
Well, but even under the current code, which is 2011, you still have that issue.
Right.
And
Right.
you would.
Right.
You would expect that. I mean,
Well-
people, we want to make sure the structures are safe
Right.
for the people that are living in them.
Well,
Or, you know, working in
Being
them.
safe and being up to the new code is not necessary. I mean, we're not all unsafe, but we
Right.
don't meet the new code.
Right.
So we can't presume it's just a safety issue. It's actually more keeping with the current
But-
national code.
Well, this
the
would
other
be
thing-
though too, if you redid your basement, for example, and you didn't get
Right.
a permit, you'd probably do some branch circuits or something in there because you're redoing it and you know, you know, this really generally would it be impacted when you do something that you should do a permit for.
Exactly.
And then you- Right.
But you may not do a permit and then you'd be in violation because you.
Or you may not do any improvements and you don't have to worry about the new code.
Exactly.
Right, if you're not upgrading your electric, you don't have to worry about that.
Don't worry about it, right?
But still, the penalty to me sounded awful.
What is interesting to me is that the onus is on you as pulling the permit and upgrading your house to be within code. And what's interesting to me is a lot of these homes weren't built to code, and the onus was on us after the fact, after we bought the house, not knowing whether it was up to code or not. And I guess I just see this as very steep, and
I think you're mixing apples and oranges here, because you're all within code because your houses were built per code and inspected.
They weren't built to
That's
code.
that's
No,
the
this is
little.
what-
Oh, they had to be, because they were all inspected.
They passed
No, they
inspection.
passed inspection. Deborah is totally right. We've had electrical work done,
Yep,
and they said
same here.
whoever did it originally did it wrong, and they have
That
to fix it,
happened.
actually.
In fact,
She's totally right.
I had a fire, and because of that, they came out and determined that the wiring was incorrect in the basement.
It passed
And it
inspection.
costs a couple $1,000s to get up to the new code. Now, it would be even more.
Okay, well, assuming then that the inspectors knew what they were doing, and the electricians knew what they were doing at the time your house was built, and it passed inspection, it should have been per code at the time of the
Rita,
inspection.
this is part of the Richmond legacy, actually.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. So then I find,
It's-
guess what? Now that I'm doing some work, I have to bring it up to code, which costs me more than what it would be to
No,
just
You're totally right.
repair the damage.
I think that the issue there is that it was not built to any code
Right.
at the time. It's got to be built to some code. So if it was built to the 2011 or the 2008 or whatever it was prior, you'd be fine. But when it's not built to any code, then they go and they say, now you've got to bring it up to the current code.
And so now I'm saying, oh, wow, that cost me more money than I originally thought would
Right,
ever
but
occur.
you're not
That happens
violation
anyway.
if
That
you're
will
doing
happen
that.
regardless of whether we adopt this or not. Because
Right.
if they go in and discover you were not built to any code, they're going to make you come up to the 2011 code, because that's what we have in place right now.
But that may
If the
put
board's
you
not
in
comfortable
hardship.
with going to the new code, we can drop this and just
Yeah.
continue to work on the 2011 code.
Well, and the elephant in the room is, why are homeowners left holding the bag, and why is there no liability for code inspectors who don't properly inspect?
Well, that's kind of, that.
Takes
kind of
us
a side-
elsewhere, but
that's-
it is an
that's a side
important
issue. I mean,
consideration.
It's not right, but it's,
It happens.
happens.
It happens, but it's not like.
It's happened a
it's
lot.
not right.
So we need to give the town some direction, and do we want to stay with 211 or not? We don't have to.
I want to hear a presentation as to what's changing.
Well, isn't this a change in the state code? And that we're adopting it?
It's the
A
national.
national, I mean, the national code?
It
Yeah.
is a national code.
Yeah.
But we're not required to adopt this
That's right.
new
Right.
version. Yeah.
Right.
But I think it would be foolish for us not to stay with the most current codes.
I would second that because of the fact that most all electricians have to pass certain licensing and testing, and they study the most current
I mean,
codes that are in place.
Codes are developed to, for
Protect
safety
us.
and save lives, and they're constantly playing catch-up to problems, and that's what codes reflect, is trying to solve problems. So if we're not adopting that, we're not solving some potential problems that could be there, so.
I mean,
I think
I'd like
I think we
oh.
definitely need to hear the presentation.
Yeah, exactly what
from our
Joe said.
building
Let's
official
get that information
and get the
before the final
information.
approval, so I'm good with that.
Okay.
And actually, my beef is with Sandy here is the penalty. And I think that not only did you get snookered on your house as far as getting any code, you now have to, it's a double whammy, you now have to spend all the extra money and maybe you don't have it. And now you're going to be fined $2,650.
A day.
A day.
That's not really going to happen.
No, you wouldn't.
be fined.
You wouldn't be fined if you're redoing something and you found you weren't up to code. There's no fine there. It would be only if you decided not
If you didn't want to pay the money to do it.
to do it, then you could be fined.
Yeah.
Yes, right. If you wanted to make the change and you didn't want to bring it up to the code, the current code, based on the new change you're making, then you could be fined for that. You wouldn't pass inspection. They wouldn't allow it to go
Well,
through
who
the
knows?
inspection.
That's right.
Here in Superior, today. Today I'm talking about.
I just don't want to
Okay.
put a homeowner in a situation where they have to come to the board and have a plea because it put them in hardship to go that much further, and now they're in penalty because,
But
you
what
know.
I'm saying is, they would be in that position as it currently stands anyways.
Right.
But maybe they didn't budget for, 5 or 10 grand more than what they.
She's taking from her personal pain now.
I'm not actually, I'm not. I'm totally not.
And
But
I'll
I'm
be
just
honest
saying-
with you, oftentimes these fines are most often they're imposed against people who live in condominiums where their failure to get a permit endangers the lives of everyone else in the building.
Well, that's not so much single-family homes, right?
Exactly, because, I mean, I'm not saying that anybody wants a single-family home to be unsafe, but if a homeowner in a condominium complex makes a choice not to get a permit and does some illegal electrical work, and it causes a fire, they're not just impacting their family, but they're impacting...
And how often that happens?
It
you know,
happens
you have,
a lot.
Because they have a shared wall that goes to the
Exactly.
right, of course.
So that's, just in my experience, the fines are most often imposed after a fire occurs against someone who has caused damage to others in a multi-unit building.
Okay, I'm good. I think we need to move on. We'll just,
Right.
yeah,
Okay.
we cover this today.
Thank you. So,
Okay.
So we're tabling this?
when we're going to do the first pass.
No, we don't have to table this, no.
I move that we approve the first reading.
And set the public hearing for the 26th.
Okay,
yeah.
motion to approve the
I second
first
it.
reading by trustee Sorelli, second by trustee Dozell. All those in favor? Passes unanimous. Okay. Item number 8, approval of the 2015 board goals.
So, based on the discussion we had at the board retreat, Martin took better notes than I did, thank you, Martin. Did a revision to the goals that were included in your retreat packet. We did a red line copy as well as a clean copy, and figured there might be additional changes, so I put it on the regular agenda for your discussion by the board.
Trustee Hanson?
Yeah, I just had notes on each one of the goals. At the end of the explanation of each goal, there's a period, then it says, through the following action objectives. It seems like,
It's not a full sentence.
yeah, it's an
We need a
incomplete sentence.
colon.
Either we say...
Oh, yeah, yeah, we can do that easily, yeah.
So-
What page are we on?
Page 138. How did
It's
I-
the red line version of the goals.
Or you can,
Oh, so we should say, so no period there. So at the very first one, it says, and supporting local businesses, period, through the following action objectives. I would say, and supporting local businesses through the following action objectives.
Okay.
yeah, one sentence.
Or add, we will. Through the following objectives, we will review quarterly business retention
Okay.
and economic development. But that's with each one of them.
Each
Or
one.
the same comment with each
Yeah,
one of
yeah,
them.
I understand.
Okay, additional
I
comments?
would like Rita to bring up her one on education, RTD, Colin Wright education.
Yeah, under the bullet item, reestablish, which should be reestablish.
Reestablish.
Yeah, the Colin Wright service in town. But it's really to implement.
And implement an action
Oh,
plan.
An action plan, a functioning Colin.
To drive ridership.
Yeah, to drive. yeah,
positively
right.
impact ridership.
Right. Because we've already achieved that
Right.
objective. Now
Right.
it's now to implement one that works.
Are you saying get rid of that and just say institute and develop and implement an action plan to positively drive?
Implement a
Right.
positive Colin Wright
Yeah.
service
Yeah.
in town, yeah,
Right.
functioning, yeah, effective, or whatever.
I mean, it hasn't been established yet.
Yeah.
I mean, we have the funding, but.
Did you
Right.
get the point about the other clause?
Yeah, yeah. So however you want to say that is fine. I don't have a problem with reestablish an effective, functioning, whatever.
Yeah.
Colin Wright service in town.
Yeah.
Okay, any additional?
Yeah, I did, again, we spoke about this at the retreat, and that was, 1, 2, 3, fourth bullet point down, provide additional code enforcement. And just reading that again, that could be taken one of two ways. One, we're bringing in, we're going to hire somebody, and we talked about that. Or we're going to really enforce the code by shoveling, making sure that sidewalks are shoveled and the cracks are fixed and all that kind of stuff. So I think that just needs to be a little clearer.
Why don't we say
On what we're saying.
enhanced code enforcement?
Ensure.
Ensure code enforcement, there you go.
Okay.
What'd you say?
Code enforcement action.
Ensure code
Provide
enforcement.
additional code enforcement actions.
I like ensure.
I think
Yeah,
that-
ensure
Code
code enforcement, but remember we talked about, it's not just code enforcement, well,
It's not
Kendra
a
was
body.
very, it's also in the PD plan areas, it's not just a municipal code, it's also the contractual or the obligations that they've entered into in the PD plans.
Yes. I think
And it-
ensure covers that. If you take
Yeah.
out provide additional, just say
Mhm.
ensure code enforcement in commercial areas within 2 years,
Mhm.
coinciding with the town center development.
And I don't know why we have within 2 years. And isn't it also, well, I don't know. It doesn't, I'm fine with it. It's really ensure code enforcement commercial areas.
And it'd be nice to ensure it now.
Okay. Maybe it's ensure PD.
No, it was more than PD.
It was more than the PD?
Oh, yeah, it was-
Because
We were
it's the
talking about
code
the
enforcement of the
marketplace.
PD that you're trying to enforce.
No, it was.
Both.
It was
We talked
focused
about
on
both, yeah.
the condition of the marketplace.
That's right.
Is where
Okay.
it first came up.
Okay.
Right.
And getting repairs done and things like that.
And Kendra said that code enforcement, in the case of a PD plan, a plan development plan, is that what they've entered, their agreement that they've entered into, the plan agreement for the PD, the plan development, like the marketplace. So it's more than just the municipal code enforcement, but it's also.
Have we captured that
Well,
in
No.
this?
No.
Well,
Why is it
obviously
just
not,
town
because
center
you don't
development?
seem to think we have, but our, Kendra had said that code enforcement for plan development is for the PD plan.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's the code.
It's zoning,
That's a
it's
code.
really called zoning enforcement, code enforcement, and in this case, the zoning, rather than being pulled from the municipal code, is pulled from the PD documents.
Right.
Is this just for the town center development?
No.
No, it's for
Then why does
anything.
it say that?
No, it
It
says
doesn't.
in commercial areas within 2 years coinciding with the town center.
Why do you have that clause there, though? Why isn't it within 2 years?
I don't know. We'll
Yeah, I-
take
And
that
get
out.
rid of
We can just say-
coinciding.
Can we just, get out, I mean, just do it immediately?
No, we did a lot of discussion, so it kind
Yeah,
of
let's get rid of that clause.
coinciding with the town center
Yeah,
development.
has nothing to do with that.
It says including, we said, that we were going to
Just,
do it.
and then eliminate the 2 years, just say
Yeah.
ensure code enforcement in commercial areas.
Right, right.
Sounds good to me.
Right.
And
2 ones down, I had asked that be changed to complete and present for board consideration the final design for the El Dorado K-8 Park site.
yes, that's right. I'm sorry, I missed that.
Complete
Yeah,
and
that-
present for board consideration the
Yeah.
final design for the Aldo K-8 Park site.
That's correct.
And I may have been completely gone or out of the discussion, but the last bullet point where we are discussing right now, explore the formation of a recreation district.
We
Wasn't
didn't discuss
discussed.
that.
Where did this come from?
From the previous board's discussion.
Brainstorming.
I never remember discussing anything about a recreation
It was
district.
thrown, it was
That's with
thrown out.
both communities?
Yeah.
Yeah.
With
It was
Louisville.
thrown
We've
out.
talked about
there.
a library district, we've talked about,
No, it was.
No, we had a meeting here 2 years ago that we brought in Louisville and Superior, and we talked about sharing services and different.
well, I remember sharing services, but not recreation district.
Well, that was kind of the start of it. I
Maybe
think.
we should
I
change that
remember
to
correctly.
shared services and just
I
tick
think
off.
so, because that
We have that
says something
elsewhere.
very different to me.
We have
the
that under
wastewater,
environmental.
we have the wastewater someplace, don't we?
Well, there's under environmental
financial,
sustainability.
yeah.
Because in no way, shape, or form do I feel that bullet point should even be there. I mean, just think about it saying, explore the formation of a library district. We're nowhere near a recreation district,
I
nor
think
a
it-
library district, nor a,
Can we presume, if that comes forth out of bullet point 1 in that same category, continue to evaluate data and determine and proceed with next steps? I think that's
that
sufficient. I
probably
think
covers
get
it.
rid of the formation, and if recreation district comes out of point 1, that first bullet point, then we.
That's fine.
I'd be okay with
I'm
just
fine with
dropping the
either way, it
bullet.
doesn't matter to me,
Right,
we
I
take it out.
agree.
yeah.
We're ahead of ourselves, maybe, just drop the
Way,
bullet.
For
way.
this year.
Yeah, that's.
Okay.
the-
Yeah.
Anything else?
On that one?
On that one, or any?
Anything?
Just drop it.
I have at the bottom, encourage environmental sustainability, where it says explore shared services. We're already doing that, so I'd say continue to explore or explore additional shared services and operations.
Continue to explore.
Okay.
And then under engage residents through outreach and marketing, we had a lot of discussions about other ways to do that other than just creating minutes on Granicus. So I wonder what happened to all of that discussion that we had there. We talked about providing updates that were similar to like a weekly digest information or figuring out ways to create a blog or, better.
Quarterly updates on the town center.
Right, and
in Sentinel.
Yeah, the Sentinel to make there was a lot.
Public relations.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's right, and then the public relations, there was a lot of discussion about actually communicating with residents.
But the paragraph itself sort of says that.
It does.
And
Then
I
think
guess we
could take out that grant. I think that's, because it makes it sound as if the only thing we're going to do is, and we're going to do all this, engage residents through outreach and marketing through the following action objectives, implement Granicus software.
Oh, we do so much already. I mean, you could list everything we do already.
Right. Well, I'm saying that that would be one of the
that's one
results.
new item, yeah.
I do not want us to get rid of implementing Granicus just because we haven't fleshed out the other couple of bullet points.
I agree with Sandy. She's been asking for that for a long time. So please keep it in there so we don't have to hear it.
Well, that's going to be the result. If we don't get it, then we failed on that.
No, I mean, we're just being hurried here.
Okay, but there's more
the point
things
was
than that.
We did discuss several other points that should be added, so let's get them added.
Right. Or at least add a couple that we need a.
We're happy to add them. Just let us know what you'd like.
I think we did. Repeat those, Rita.
Providing updates, communicate with about the updates that were similar in the Sentinel.
Add quarterly updates on Superior Town Center to the Superior Sentinel.
We're already doing
Chris
that.
said investigate the possibility of engaging a PR firm to augment our communications program. Right? Isn't that what you said?
And then we also talked about.
Hold on. We talked about two things, but the town center updates on the Sentinel, that's already happening. So, I mean, again, should we?
No.
It happened in January.
It happened
well, no,
once.
we're
It's not
saying
a
more.
quarterly program.
Actually, we were planning monthly, but if you want to
Or
go
monthly?
to quarterly.
Well, put it in here. If you're ready to
Monthly would be
chalk it
better.
off.
Monthly would be better.
But it's not just, well, what I'm saying is that it's not just the town center. That's great. That's good. But we get a lot of interesting and positive and informative items that come out of the weekly digest. Doesn't mean that every one of those things, because some of them had to do with town management, but some of those things would be important or valuable to residents to hear. So we should look at some of the things that come in our weekly
So bullet
digest.
4, as appropriate,
Yeah.
include
Right.
material from weekly digest in communications with residents.
Okay, so now I'm coming back and saying that I'd be okay with saying that it's up to the town manager and his staff to determine what things he'll check off at the end of the year or every quarter, saying, this is how I engage with the community. And so we don't have to tell you,
Okay.
Matt, today what all those things are. We've given you some ideas, and then you just come back and tell us in the weekly digest and at quarterly or whenever we review our objectives and say, okay, this is what we did to engage residents through outreach and marketing. We don't
Rita,
need to
do
say
you want
it
a
here.
bullet point here, though, that says that?
Whatever you feel comfortable with. I feel comfortable with coming back and asking Matt, okay, what did you do to engage residents through outreach and marketing, other than just implementing the Granicus software? But I'm okay with, if you want to specifically.
Well, you weren't okay with just one bullet point, so the question I'm asking is, do you want to include more than one?
All I said was we had a lot of discussion about this, and we ended up not having the other bullet points.
Well, I think we discussed it. We should have a couple more bullet points here that capture what that discussion was, so.
I think if you add that bullet point, then Matt's going to actually report on it at the end of the year when we do the review. So he'll say, here, you wanted this bullet point, here's what we did for this.
Right.
We've asked quarterly, he's already doing it monthly, so.
Great. This is also for education for anybody else who reads goals.
Correct.
As to what it is the board's objectives are. So that's why I don't want to do short shrift of, so do you feel like, I see Martin back there
Yeah.
furiously typing. Are you capturing all this, Martin?
Well, we have the tape, too. So
Okay.
we'll go back and listen to the
Okay.
tape.
I'm good enough with just the discussion and letting you guys capture.
In saying that at least quarterly, we'll have a new way of, we'll document something we've done.
Town activities, quarterly updates on town activities.
Or communicating and engaging with the residents. You don't have to say even, one of them could be activities, one of them might be something else that we haven't even thought of yet.
That's been kind of the monthly letter from the mayor in the past.
There you go, it's all his fault.
I can do it.
Yeah.
I can do it.
Responsibility. Okay, great.
Okay, and then the explore the PR person.
Yes.
Yes.
That's
Explore
another
the
bullet,
PR,
another
yeah.
bullet point. Any other bullet points? Okay.
Do you
All
want
right.
this to come back on the consent on the 26th, or how would you like to proceed?
I think we'd all like to see the final
Okay.
version before we hit the
good.
red button on it, so.
Okay.
But let's do this. If you could circulate a draft before the agenda, and let's all read it, and then.
Give our consent.
And then send it through on the consent. Next
Okay.
meeting would be a great way to do it.
Okay.
That way we don't get into the second month of 2015 without actually having goals for
Actually, it's not
2000.
bad, believe it or not. In the old days, it used to take longer.
And this is a good goal statement, so it's producing a good document.
It's a good one. It is.
In the past, it was kind of perfunctory, just kind of,
Yeah.
whatever's up there, just that's by next year. Yes.
And I think the discussions have been more valuable than even what we're going to
Yes.
end up with here as words.
It has been. Good. Okay. All right, next is item number 9, adoption of a resolution approving an agreement for the sale and purchase of Ronald Mitchell property along Coal Creek.
Thank you, Mayor. So as everybody knows, we have the Coal Creek Channel improvements, which basically are from McCaslin west and then upstream on Coal Creek, where we saw the most significant impacts from the 2013 flood event. Alex and his staff have been working hard with residents who have property adjacent to the creek that we need easements, access easements, so we can do the improvements and maintenance as well. We've made significant progress with most of those residents and have a lot of those access easements in place. This is one property where a gentleman bought this very tiny piece of property. Martin, will you put it up on the screen
Is
for
it
me?
600th of an acre?
Yes. Years ago, speculative. It was on the county's property lien assessment, and he bought it that way, and he's just held on to it.
How
this
much did he
whole
pay
time.
for it by any chance? Do you know?
I don't know.
Probably just the
$10.
taxes due at the time.
Yeah, just the taxes due, I think is exactly right. Yeah.
Nice.
So it's .006 acres. As you can see, it's located between 2nd Avenue and 3rd Avenue on the south side of the creek.
You can't really do anything with that sun.
No.
Nothing.
No.
Deepwater port, Deepwater.
But you get access to the creek.
We get access to the creek, we can do our improvements,
No, I know, but.
the alley's right there, there's an alley, and then 3rd Avenue is right there where, we may do a bridge in the future.
Was
so-
that kind of like a retaining wall that kind of gave out?
Yes, 'cause that's where the bridge was.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I do recall that
Yeah.
area.
So if we put a bridge there in the future, it'll be beneficial to have this property as well. So fortunately, we've agreed to a price. It's $4,898, which is $1.95 a square foot.
You couldn't round it to 5,000.
Goes over a threshold.
Right.
Yeah.
And just so happens that we, from the Rock Creek channel improvements we did a couple years ago, we got a refund from Urban Drainage for about $5,000. So that's the fund
All
we're
right, so
using
there
for
you
it.
have it. Okay.
But since I hadn't discussed this with the board, I put it on the regular agenda, so we had a chance to answer any questions you might have.
And Mr. Mitchell's happy with the price?
Yes,
Is that market rate?
it is.
No, I've never seen a transaction like this before.
It's the standard rate that we've paid for open space or like properties. we've purchased in the past.
And what's the advantage to us, other than access?
Yeah, we're able to do the channel improvements in that area with no issues because we own the property. And if we do the 3rd Avenue Bridge at some point in the future, there'll probably be some benefits as well.
Do we get mineral rights?
No. With the water quality issues you would have trying to drill there, you probably couldn't get any minerals off of it. But
And this seems like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah.
And wasn't that some of the worst damage To the
Through
banks?
that area, yeah.
To that whole
Yeah,
area
yeah.
from that flood?
The properties to the south took a significant impact from the waters.
Because I remember touring it.
So we're spending money, do we have to vote on the?
We have to have a
Yes.
motion
Yeah,
first.
we've got a purchase and sale agreement
Yep.
for the board's consideration.
Trustee Hansen.
I'd like to make a motion, resolution number R-5, Series 2015, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior approving a purchase and sale agreement for the Mitchell parcel.
Motion by Trustee Hansen, second by Trustee Williams. All those in favor? Oh, nope.
Roll call.
Sorry,
Yes.
roll call.
Spending money.
Cirilli?
Yes.
Dozell?
Yes.
Folsom?
I'll get that.
Folsom?
Folsom?
Yes.
Dugaris?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Pennington?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Are there any other properties we can buy for this kind of money?
There may be one other property.
And this
that-
quickly.
And the other property is .002 acres.
right,
So
bring it
it
on.
might be coming forward at some point.
Is there anything on that property right now? Like trash or leftover
Debris?
cars?
There's
or-
two prairie
There might
dogs.
be tree debris or something in the creek or down by the bank, but that would be part of the project.
But not
on the property,
living,
There's two prairie dogs.
leftover living things?
No.
Okay.
Jimmy Hoffa.
I think it's there.
Because like we bought that property up here, we got a building that we're going to
Right,
have to,
yeah, yeah.
I just want to make sure there was nothing there. They should take it off first before,
No, we've already
We
bought it.
take-
There's no
We've already bought it,
deconstruction,
so.
yeah.
right? Okay.
Whatever might have been there, the floodwaters.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
All right, very good.
Okay.
We're done.
Well, West Connect,
circle.
let's circle back to West Connect for a few minutes, because we've got our executive session coming up. Final thoughts on West Connect?
Well, I will say this, that I was not here during that discussion when you guys discussed the West Connect and whether you wanted to be a part of that charter coalition or not. And unfortunately, it got out into the paper, which is basically partly what your email that I have not seen is alluding to.
Can you send that to her?
I sent it to,
Okay.
I sent it just.
So, I have to say, we don't look very good coming back and saying, oh, now we want to be full, because, well, you wrote the charter to our specifications of what we've been asking for, and you made it much more fair, and we would like to be a part of it in full. So I don't know how we change that relationship.
I'm going to disagree totally. The fact that something appears in the paper does not drive a darn thing. What drives a darn thing is when you're at those meetings, what you said at those meetings. At the table at those meetings, anybody can be in the paper saying whatever the heck they want to say, but what was communicated at those meetings? And my interpretation from what you said, and you're here to tell us what was said at those meetings, is that you said we won't even take this West Connect charter anything seriously for any reason until these modifications are made to it. A lot had to do with the unanimous consent thing, et cetera, et cetera. They did eventually come around to the position you asked them to take. So when they come around to the position they came around to your position, then the question is, okay, we came around to your position. Now, do you want to be full or do you want to be?
But see, that, I was at the same meeting,
Okay.
and
You mean
we didn't go
the
there.
last one, yeah.
Right.
But
We didn't
they-
go there. We
So why
all-
not? And did they just presume?
Well,
No, actually, can I say something?
Okay.
Before that meeting, I did go there. I went to the full membership. Well, should we all agree on a charter that we all feel that could move us forward, can we be a full member? And at that point, they said, well, you were in the paper. Your board was quoted saying you're not interested. I know.
Somebody was.
I understand. But that's how they viewed it. And so it was a little difficult to speak to that, well, it was premature of them discussing it.
Well,
So,
and I think because of that, because of the lawsuit, because of everything Superior's done prior, I think it's going to be hard for them to even fathom that we would step up and spend any kind of money on anything as a full member. So I kind of question, is being a full member a complete waste of time? Even if they said yes, and then the next meeting they come back and say, well, ready to do a study, everybody pull out their checkbooks. We're not going to go for that, most likely. I mean, unless it's some study to study something at 128 and McCaslin. So I think we're kind of spinning our wheels on this.
If you're a full member, though, they do come back and say, okay, pony up, Superior, you got $1 million towards this particular study. Do we have to pay it?
No, you got to all agree.
Yeah, you don't have to pay.
The full members have to all agree.
So why not be a full member then? if you
Actually,
have that option?
unanimous consensus includes full members and affiliate members equally.
But the payment part.
That is what
If there's a vote required, only the full members vote. So that, to me, is bogus about this unanimous consensus. If only full members vote, then only full members vote.
Actually, if you read the charter, they only vote on specific, the director, or, I don't know, help me, what was those? It was formalities, not vote for.
Right. Well, I thought on other matters that they deem to be
Oh,
voted.
voting for a chair and a...
Correct, thank you.
On procedural.
Matt,
No.
how do you feel about, do you
It
have,
was just
forward, I can't
procedural, they
imagine that.
changed that. They took that out.
where do you lean towards full members?
My recommendation would be to continue, or to move forward as an affiliate member.
Okay.
We're in the discussion, we have this lawsuit that's still out there. I think we're in a better position if we're not a full member with regard to the lawsuit myself. I think that was what Tim Tablehouse said as well in his, that we should be at the table, but, I mean, that would be my position.
My question is, what difference is there between an affiliate and a full, based on everything I just discussed? We took out, go ahead.
I think the expectation, as far as the coalition's concerned, is they're expecting full members to
Pony.
step up to the plate when it comes time to fund these studies and anything else. And I just think they're going to look at us and go, what are you doing?
But let's be honest here. Did they ever consider us, no matter with a newspaper article, no matter anything?
Doubtful.
They didn't, they never wanted us as a
No.
full member, so let's not blame ourselves here, okay? They never intended for us to be, which is, goes back to my nervousness that this is just another iteration of JPPHA, because that was unsuccessful, and they're trying to repackage it, restart it. Yes, I'm glad we're at the table, but the fact is, if we're a full member, we can drive some things, and I don't think we're going to be able to drive much.
But they asked us to be at the table this time. So I'm going to just throw that. They asked us to be at the table. They considered us a full member in the very beginning, and they shut that down pretty quickly.
So can we take a straw poll amongst
I
the
just-
trustees to see where we're at?
I'd like to analogize this to when the Rocky Flats Stewardship Council was created, there were certain members and then certain rotating members, and over a period of time, those rotating members, and Golden was one of them, asked for full membership at one of the times to reiterate the charter. And, everybody was in agreement. I'd say we start out as an affiliate. Over a period of time, we want to be a full member, and the other members see us as being legitimate participants in this as an affiliate and not just an obstructionist. I suspect they would not oppose our full
See, I think the
membership.
board is split. We have full membership.
So I'm thinking affiliate doesn't hurt us at
I agree.
this point,
You're an affiliate more?
and they can see over a period of time that we really we're entering this in good faith.
Split.
I
So we
think
have
that's
to
what.
figure that out.
Well, I don't actually think it's split. I'd like to hear from, Deborah, you've been the most involved. What's your recommendation?
Well,
It is split, you just heard.
I completely agree with Joe. I mean,
That's-
I think we have to approve being a affiliate member, and if we're going to sit there and force being a full member, I don't think it's going to work.
Okay.
But in hopes of seeking full membership later on down the road.
If it makes sense.
I think that's our only option.
I think this, I think
And it
they're,
keeps us at the table, which is the real value of all of these multi-governmental.
I think the ship's already sailed. I mean, as far as their.
I think you're right.
For now, it has. I mean, this email that we haven't read, what it says.
The only two that should be reading it. No,
Right.
I'm kidding.
Well, it went directly to
What I gathered is that this ship has already sailed, and they're happy with the way they've got it, and I think we should be at the table and be happy to be at the table as an affiliate and take it
I'm
one
not
step at a
happy
time.
with the gap in process between achieving what we hope to achieve in terms of the terms and the ship sailing, because there seemed to have been a port of call missed here, that we should have been asked at the tail end rather than presumed.
Well, what we
But we were never
showed
part
up
of
at-
it. We
well,
never wanted to be
right.
part of it in the past.
We
And it's
showed
not
up-
even, it's for the southern portion. It's,
Yes.
we're just kind of, they're bringing us in, if you read the original documents, because we're on the
Periphery.
of
And
it.
some of it, and on a very important edge on the other part of it.
No, we're on the periphery of what they're talking about. And if it is really the Jefferson Parkway and they're trying to implement that, it might be cross purposes with what we want to do. So again, I go back to the meeting that was held last year sometime with the previous board. You all discussed this, and it was, let's just stay at the table as an affiliate, the way it was proposed, and then we'll see what happens
So I guess
when we
that's-
understand the agenda of the group.
I disagree,
Yeah.
because when you're considering a whole different set of terms,
That's right.
that's what we said at that point in time. And we've been successful in having, a lot because of Deborah's tenacity to getting those terms reviewed and improved upon. So I think we're ready to take a vote, and I'm fine being in the minority on this, but let's characterize it correctly.
I disagree. I haven't read anything in any of these documents that say why we shouldn't be a full member. I mean, we don't know if it's going to cost $5,000 or if it's going to cost $10 million.
I agree.
We haven't seen that. And until we do see that, let's push to be a full member, because I think that we could regret it.
And we haven't seen it because they don't have it. They don't
Okay.
know yet. The group
Great.
has not gotten to that point yet.
So what we've seen so far, the only thing that we have to go by is what's been presented to us. And what's been presented to us, I say, let's be a full member. What do
And
we
by
have
the
to
way,
lose?
they had a scenario where they had a study of something they were considering, and CDOT was involved in this, and it put us at maybe 5,000 tops.
Yeah, Joe, is it possible that this group is going to be somewhat, or Matt probably knows better, that this group could possibly be like the Rocky Flats Stewardship Council, how they operate? Or is it something?
No, more like US 36
Yeah.
coalition.
Yeah, I
In
think
fact,
it's-
they're going down that path. That is
Okay.
what they're
The-
trying to
The Stewardship
achieve.
Council has a much more, everybody's much more in line on what to accomplish there than what potentially might happen on this. This might have some controversy involved, but I think everybody really works hard to be in line with each other.
Okay, so
Because Stewardship
I
Council-
haven't seen anything since we've had these first discussions, when we first started on this. Back then, I thought, well, I don't see the reason why we wouldn't want to be full members. We want to be at the table with these guys. And we've talked about, what if they start calling executive sessions and they don't allow affiliate members in?
And we haven't got those answers.
I think that there is
Well,
a.
the answer was that they don't think that they
They
don't
think
plan
they
on
will,
having
okay,
executive
sure.
sessions. They've never-
What's the harm in seeking to be full members, and if that
Well,
doesn't pan out, then we become affiliates?
That's what I say, we can't lose anything this way.
Well, we can, because they've told us they'd have to take a step back and start over.
Great.
And they have to
Because
re-sign.
they do, because people have signed it, and they have to
That's.
relook at it.
I think it's
So
worth
that's not-
fighting for.
That may not be that big a deal.
I think it's worth fighting for, and like we said at the retreat, that based on this new document, there's changes here. We like this, we want to be full members. That's
What-
reasonable.
What is it
Isn't
that we
their
expect
presumption?
to get out
It
of
is
it?
what the board said. I mean, if you go back and you
The
read those
board
minutes, that's
didn't, what the
said.
board says is the vote we take now. The board wasn't polled before somebody did a newspaper article.
That was your discussion, the board's
So
discussion.
what?
Forget the newspaper
It
article.
doesn't matter.
So they're going to come back and say to you, well, now you want to be in
That
a
was
poll.
based on a previous draft. It's like, I don't want to buy this house until
Right.
the contract terms are brought in line.
So would
Then
it,
we
would
have
it
to
be
make it very
helpful,
clear then.
would it be helpful if we did a straw poll on affiliate member or?
Clear direction.
No,
Okay.
it's totally split, I told you.
So yes, that would be helpful.
Yes,
Okay,
that's
let's do a straw poll right now on affiliate versus full member, not making any further decisions than that, but this at least gives staff some further direction as we continue the discussions with them.
Okay.
So, straw poll for affiliate membership. Okay. Full membership. Hanson, Pennington. Okay. Do we have direction? Okay.
And I'm gonna.
So why
throw
are we
something in.
taking straw and not just taking a vote? I mean,
Can I-
what's the
It's not on
value
the
of straw?
agenda.
Giving direction to.
It'd be on the next agenda.
It's not on the agenda.
But when I go to this meeting, I will represent the fact that we will be an affiliate member at this time. And then as things progress, we may want to ask for full membership.
And we have every right to do that, right, legally?
And
Yeah,
we
legally, there's
like-
not a lot of, there are not a lot of parameters on this thing. I'll be honest with you, it's not a legal organization.
No.
The charter isn't a legal document. It's a very, I'm not trying to be critical, but there's not a lot of parameters on this thing.
So what does that mean to you?
Which means.
What it means to me is, I'm not sure what the
We're at
purpose is.
their mercy.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't discuss any voting requirements, it doesn't discuss executive sessions, it doesn't discuss what they do, it doesn't discuss how they have a budget, it doesn't discuss whether they're subject to the local budget law. I mean, I don't know what it is, and so.
It's like the US 36 MCC, but we don't have a charter for that.
It's like JPPHA.
But
Well, wait a
but
minute.
We've agreed to get together.
Does any of those parameters she just mentioned, is that in the US 36 coalition? Any of that?
It has no charter.
No.
Okay,
So
so
this
how
is
can you operate with that, with very little, no charter at all, and yet have a problem operating with this?
Is everybody the same membership status on 36 Commuting Solutions, or are there tiers of
So you're
membership?
that's different.
That's a different.
We're talking about the
US 36
six
coalition.
mayors, commissioners coalition.
Okay, so are we all the same status, or are there tiers of status?
No, there's,
I mean-
like Longmont has just been attending without being a member. They may be becoming a member.
Right, but there are
We've
not
invited
full
some
members
other-
and affiliate members.
We have invited some other entities that may become members or may not become members. There's been some that have expressed, and really the commitment of membership is to provide staff time, and if we have an outside lobbyist to help pay for that, that's the commitment and how 36 has been working.
Is Erie a member?
They,
But they want to be.
I'm not sure, I don't recall now which way they were. I think they were waffling on it.
They're invited to the next meeting. We'll see if they show up.
Jefferson County was interested in becoming a member.
And they're invited to the next meeting. That'll be a real party. All right.
And Longmont, I
Okay.
think, is
Don't
going
make
to-
them a full member.
Maybe it's a
separate tier.
tradable. We could call them an affiliate if they call.
Yeah. Okay.
No, yeah, that's a good comparison though. It's the
Okay. Anything
36.
further on that? Okay, anything further on anything before do we adjourn or do we just go to?
No.
Okay.
Make a motion to go to
Okay.
executive session.
Make a motion to go into executive session.
Okay, motion by trustee Hanson to go into.
I'm sorry, we actually need to read the whole,
Oh, yeah.
it has to actually be read
Okay.
out loud.
Item number 10 on the agenda is executive session to determine positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, develop a strategy for negotiations, and/or instruct negotiators pursuant to Colorado Revised Statutes 24-6-402 4E to hold a conference with the town's attorney to receive legal advice on specific legal questions pursuant to Colorado Revised Statutes 24-6-402 4B, and to consider the purchase, acquisition, lease, transfer, or sale of real property pursuant to Colorado Revised Statutes 24-6-402 4A, for which a topic cannot be disclosed without compromising the purpose of the executive session. Motion by trustee Hanson,
Second.
second by trustee Sorelli. All those in favor? Passes unanimous.
You want us to wait, Sandy?
No, go ahead.